Okay, what do you think? 15-minute meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not gonna, they're just here to support pickleball.
All right. Like to reconvene our April 10th meeting of the Auburn City Council. We had adjourned to closed session and we have no reportable action at this time. Next item on the agenda would be the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Holmes, would you please lead the pledge?
Okay. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Councilman. I appreciate that. Next item on the agenda, we have several mayor's commendations, proclamations, acknowledgements, and announcements. And the first proclamation is going to be for Donate a Life Month. I'm going to actually take these all up there. And I think I have Valen Keefe here. Come on up to the lectern and we'll do this. All right. Thank you to Madam Clerk for printing these out in large print. Appreciate it greatly. All right. Whereas one organ donor hero can save the lives of 8 people through the donation of organs and improve the lives of up to 75 people with eye and tissue donation. And more than 107,000 patients continue to wait for life-saving organ transplants on the national wait list, including 1,500 in our service area. And every day, 22 people on the wait list die because of shortage of organ donors. And every year, 1 million people need cornea or tissue transplants. And Sierra Donor Services serves Northern California and Northern Nevada communities and is the center of a dynamic, interconnected system supporting donor families, local hospitals, and transplant centers in the vital mission of saving and improving lives through organ, eye, and tissue donation. And in 2022, Sierra Donor Services, for the second year in a row and through a pandemic, facilitated the transplant of 401 organs, saving more lives than ever before, thanks to the selfless generosity of 153 organ donors and 881 tissue donors. And there are 18 Placer County patients who became organ donors, and 42 Placer County patients received organ transplants in 2022. And we honor all of those who have given the extraordinary gift of life through living and deceased donation. And Californians can register to be donors regardless of their age or medical history. We encourage every Californian to register as an organ and tissue donor on their driver's license or ID card at the Department of Motor Vehicles or online at donatelifecalifornia.org and talk to their family about giving the gift of life through organ, eye, and tissue donation. Now, therefore, I, Alice Dowden Calvillo, Mayor of the City of Auburn, on behalf of the City Council, proclaim the month of April 2023 as Donate Life Month. So I'd like to give this to you, and I have to sign it first, so I'll give it to you afterwards.
Thank you.
But congratulations to you. Thank you. And I'll give you a moment.
Hello, thank you, everyone. My name is Valen Kiefer, and I'm a double organ transplant recipient. My life has been doubled thanks to the miracle of organ donation. I received a kidney transplant 20 years ago and a liver transplant 4 years ago. I've been a passionate advocate for 20 years, and it means a lot to have the local support here in Auburn. We have the courthouse is lit blue and green all of April to help raise awareness of organ donation. And it means a lot to have this proclamation. Placer County also did one, and the Auburn State Theater will be showing a docuseries this August, Letters of Hope, that I'm featured in on the trials and triumphs of transplantation. So I hope all of you will join us then. Thank you so much. This means a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your very hard work, and congratulations on your recovery for your. Next item is the Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month. And I understand that Christina is coming up for that one. Look at this. She's got, there we go. Oh, wonderful. All right. Whereas in 2017, Placer County investigated 3,251 reports of child abuse and neglect, affecting an average of 2 children per household. All adults and caregivers have a responsibility as neighbors, community members, and citizens of the community to help create healthy, safe, and nurturing environment for children and youth. And safe and healthy childhoods help produce confident, successful, and independent adults. And child abuse and neglect often occurs when people find themselves in isolated or stressful situations without community resources and don't know how to cope. And the majority of child abuse cases stem from the situations and conditions that are preventable when our communities are supportive, active, and engaged. And child abuse and neglect can be reduced by making sure every family has the support it needs and deserves to raise their children in a healthy environment. And protective factors are conditions that reduce or eliminate the risk, promote the social and emotional and developmental well-being of children. And effective prevention programs succeed because of meaningful connections and partnerships created between agencies, schools, faith-based organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the businesses of the community. And Placer County's collaborative is among the most effective in the county. And for over 30 years, Kids First Counseling and Family Resource Centers has functioned as a child abuse prevention council for Placer County, with 2 locations strategically located in Roseville and Auburn to serve Western Southern Placer County. And wearing a blue ribbon, wearing the blue on April 5 and displaying a pinwheel garden in April will serve as a positive reminder that together we can treat and prevent child abuse and neglect and keep children safe. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council does hereby proclaim April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month and urges all citizens to join Kids First and its engaged partners as they support each other's families efforts, to keep themselves and their children safe, healthy, and in a nurturing environment. I will sign this, but congratulations to you. And if you'd like to say a word, please.
Thank you very much for this proclamation. And as stated in it, our children in Placer County, unfortunately, are experiencing abuse. And sometimes when we hear that, it can make us shy away. But really what we need is everyone really to lean in. Child abuse is preventable, and we all have something that we can add, whether it's awareness or being that safe place or a program or a ride where we can add. So in Placer County, we have great success because of our community members and our partners. And we'd love anyone who wants to join to come on board. So if you have any questions and you want to join the prevention game, you can just look us up on Kids First. We have a website, and we'll get you connected either with our prevention services or all the other people out there in the community that are doing the good works. So thank you again for the time.
And thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And thank you for your hard work for our children. Next item on the agenda here, or the next proclamation, is for National Public Safety Dispatchers Week. And Chief, are you coming up here? Come on, dispatchers extraordinaire for the city of Auburn. Got to show our appreciation of the awesome work that you do every single day.
Unless you want to stand right there.
All right, I'll go ahead and read this proclamation. National Public Safety Dispatchers Week, which is April 10th through the 14th. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and the accuracy of information obtained from citizens who contact the City of Auburn's Emergency Communications Center. And public safety dispatchers are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And public safety dispatchers are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And public safety dispatchers of the Auburn Police Department have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, life-saving measures, suppression of fires, and treatments of patients. And in 2022, public safety dispatchers of the Auburn Police Department handled and processed approximately 31,272 total calls, of which 3,639 were 911 emergency calls. And public safety dispatchers of the Auburn Police Department assist with the processing of reports, additional administrative tasks, and participate in the department's social media presence. And each dispatcher has exhibited empathy, ownership, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Alice Dowden Calvillo, on behalf of the City Council of Auburn, declare the week of April 10 through 14 as National Public Safety's Telecommunicators Week in the City of Auburn in the honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and our citizens safe. Chief, I'll give you the handshake first and to congratulate each one of you for all of your efforts. And Chief, you'd like to say a word here while I sign this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it's fitting that I have this email here I received from Samantha Davis, who is our supervisor. I had a meeting this morning with Cal OES. They complimented our center on our speed of answering times. In this last 12 months, on average, our center has answered 97.2 of the 911 calls within the required 15 seconds. The current standard is 90% within 15 seconds. He stated that is the highest he has seen in a long time. This speaks of all of your commitment to the exceeding standards and the hard work each of you put in daily. So that's from Cal OES. So that just goes to show you how hard your dispatchers are working out there. And real quick, Madam Mayor, you might notice there's two people, new faces behind me. This morning, I had the privilege of swearing in two more dispatchers. I have Patty Ortiz, is a hardworking individual who is originally from Cupertino. She moved to Sacramento in 1989 and then to Roseville in 1996. Patty is a devoted wife and mother of 4 children, has 2 grandsons, and has been happily married for 32 years. She cherishes spending time with her family and friends, whether it's a simple movie night or a weekend camping trip. Patty is also an active church member and enjoys participating in mission trips, particularly helping with student ministries. She has a passion for making a positive impact in the lives of others and is always willing to lend a helping hand whenever she can. And to her left, Jerry Lynn Gao grew up in law enforcement and public service. Her father was a CHP officer. Her mother was the bravest person she knows and did everything and anything to help others, including volunteer fire rescue and matron at the local jail in Garberville, California. She moved to Applegate in 1981, where she attended Weimar Hills School and Colfax High School. She was a musician and an athlete. Jerry Lynn volunteered with the Applegate Weimar Company 31 volunteer firefighter fire department, where she met her incredible husband, Ian, of almost 32 years. She got married next door to the station in case there was a call, left the fire service after 25 years and worked for Placer County Sheriff's Office Dispatch. Then had almost 8 years supporting clients at Nevada County Behavioral Health. And she and her husband have 2 amazing kids, Rebecca and Neil. Her heart and soul, she is really looking forward to providing excellent customer service and care to the citizens of the City of Auburn and working with the law enforcement family again. So welcome our 2 newest dispatchers.
All right, Chief, you're going to stay here because I have one more. This is for National Volunteer Week, April 17 through April 21st. National Volunteer Week has been celebrated since 1974, and volunteers make lasting difference as they selflessly dedicate their time and energy to performing acts of goodwill and improving the quality of life for all people, And our volunteers represent all facets and shared values of the city of Auburn. Boy, we got a lot of volunteers. This is awesome here. And the Auburn Police Department. And in 2022, through care and compassion, they continued to play an important role in the ongoing success of Auburn. There are not enough thank yous to express our gratitude. And the Auburn Police Department volunteers participated in an abundance of events representing the city, including but not limited to live scan services, drug take-back, celebrity chef, as well as assisting to reorganize the police department. And whereas our volunteers play a critical role in the life and well-being of our residents and community, the annual observance for National Volunteer Week sets aside an entire week dedicated to serving others in need and honor those who volunteer all year. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Alice Dowden Calvillo, on behalf of the City Council, declare the week of April 17th through the 21st to be National Volunteer Week in the city of Auburn in honor of the men and women who selflessly dedicate their time and energy to improve the quality of life for those who live, work, and play in our community. And Chief, there you are. You got a whole bunch of volunteers here, so I'll let you take the mic.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, I don't think 1 week is enough for our volunteers, recognizing them. We're fortunate to have here in the city of Auburn, people, just our community is really volunteer centric, and the police department is a recipient of that. We set off a few years ago of increasing our volunteer program, showing how much we value our program and the people that do this. And I think we've continued to be successful in that model, in that endeavor. We attract great volunteers, great people that are doing so much for us, things that we would not be able to provide to our community. Things that what we take for granted, like LifeScan, understanding that every sports coach, every teacher, anything we do with youth requires a LifeScan. And there's no shortage of people coming through our doors to do just that. We also have a number of special events throughout the year in this community. And if you go to one of those events, you're definitely going to see one of the attendees wearing a white shirt representing our police department. So again, as the chief, I couldn't say enough about our volunteers, of all the things they do and how successful they make us as an organization. So thank you.
Thank you.
This is fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Chief, there you go. All right. That concludes. Move right along. Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone's patience as we got through those acknowledgements. I also wanted to take this opportunity as mayor on behalf of my colleagues here to wish our city clerk a very happy birthday.
Thank you for spending your birthday at this lovely event this evening.
We really appreciate you and thank you very much for all of your hard work. And thanks for spending, yes, your birthday here with us. All right, council, getting back to the agenda. Next on the agenda is the agenda approval. Without objection, I'll consider the agenda approved.
Actually, I would like to ask that we move item 11 before item 10, just based on the fact that I see a lot of individuals here who are here for item 10. And based on the financial aspect of the two, item 10, or excuse me, everyone's here for item 11. And based on the finances, the general plan 1.1 versus less amount of money, it might be a little quicker to do item number 11 first.
All right, so is there any objection to moving the order, switching item 10 and 11? No objection. All right. Seeing none, that shall be the order and the agenda shall be approved as amended with item number 11 coming before 10. Let me make a note here so I remember to do that. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent calendar. Items 1 through actually all the way up to 8 are on consent. And are there any questions or concerns on the consent agenda, council?
I had talked to Joan before and she said she was going to pull number 4. Is that still the case?
We can pull. I was, yeah.
Number
Well,
four,
you were gonna take it off the agenda altogether last time that I heard. Pull it out.
yes, I apologize for not doing that. If I can have just a moment to confer.
Okay, we'll have a, we can sing happy birthday.
Brief intermission.
Do we need to, yeah, so what my question is do we need to pull the item off the agenda or are you just asking to have it pulled from consent?
Hold on just one second.
Okay, just a moment.
I just wanted to make sure there was no time sensitivity to it, so it would be staff's recommendation to remove it from the agenda, put it to the next agenda.
Okay, so there is a request to continue item number 4. Any other changes or removal off the consent agenda, council?
I-
Oh, I just wanted to remove number 5
Item
or
number,
pull number 5 for discussion.
okay,
And I just had a question on number 2. So,
number 2,
yes.
I have a question about number 8.
okay. Just a moment, item number 8. Okay, all right, so the consent agenda now as amended would include items 1, 3, 6, and 7. So is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I will move that we approve the consent calendar with items 2, 4, 5, and 8 full.
With the clarification that 4 is being continued, not just pulled off consent. It's being continued to the next meeting. Good. Okay. And
I'll
then
second
second,
that.
it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Mara,
Yes.
Berlant,
Yes.
Holmes,
Aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Mayor Dowden Calvillo.
Aye, let the record show that the consent agenda has been approved as amended. Moving on, the next item then will be item number 2 under municipal financing of police vehicles. I don't remember which council member pulled that item. Yes, Councilwoman Amara.
Thank you. I just had a question. I don't know if this is, Chief Canan is here. So I certainly understand the need for the newer vehicles. My question is, we're going through a finance program. What is the interest rate on that?
So Ryan Canan, Chief of Police, to answer your question. So we actually were able to get the same interest rate we did when we ordered the first set of Tahoes. So where interest rates have significantly increased and continue to, we were actually able to roll that into the old or the original municipal financing plan.
Good.
So don't quote me off. It's around 7%.
Okay.
7.
And then the other question is, I noticed that the vehicles are from, all from Elk Grove. Did we give Auburn dealerships any opportunity?
So when we order vehicles, we have to go through the state contracting, and the Elk Grove dealership is the one that has the contract.
Okay.
We would
Good.
certainly encourage our Auburn car owners to get on the CMAS schedule so they can contract too with state of
Yes.
California.
Good.
Especially with vehicle shortages in general, we were looking at actually everywhere. And so when these cars came up, they came through the state contract.
Great. So I just want to make that clear to everybody in town. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Let me
Mara.
just follow up on that.
Yep.
Not every dealership sells the police packaged vehicles that you are purchasing. Is that correct?
Correct.
So
And so,
It's, yeah, go ahead.
so correct. Not every dealership sells the police vehicles, and not every dealership sells vehicles that are part of the state contract.
Any other questions?
With that, I'll move.
Madam, City Councilwoman, one moment, please. Any public comment on this item? Hearing none? Yes.
Yeah,
Madam.
I'll move we approve by resolution the lease purchase of 4 police vehicles utilizing the General Motors financing program.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Mara,
Yes.
Berlant.
Yes.
Holmes,
Aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
And Mayor Dowden Calvillo.
Aye. Let the record show the motion has been adopted unanimously. Number 4 has been continued to our next meeting. So we move on to item number 5. And
That was me.
Councilwoman Riddell Harris, did you pull this item?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. You had mentioned at a previous city council meeting that this was a great opportunity, but it hadn't been discussed in full or any information on it presented to the public. So I just wanted to pull it so that way we could get a general overview of what it is for the public and discuss it for a few minutes.
Great. And we do have representatives here from Pioneer. And so I'm sure they will be very happy to present some information. Would you like a presentation, Madam Councilwoman? Or
Just an overview.
a
or-
quick overview?
Yeah,
Oh,
that would be great.
great.
Thank you. Kirsten Kolpitke with Pioneer Community Energy. So just a brief overview, we had a bunch of our board members that were interested in trying to find a way to meet compliance with the state's organic procurement requirements. Starting in 2022, local jurisdictions are supposed to meet their organic procurement waste requirements. In 2023, that's 30% of their target that's established through population multiplied by a factor of 0.08. In 2024, that's 65%, and in 2025, it's supposed to be 100% ongoing. What we were looking at is being able to procure biomass attributes. There was a presentation that Greenleaf Power put on with CalRecycle on how you would meet compliance through that. So rather than procuring compost or mulch, jurisdictions can procure the biomass attribute from a biomass facility. And this means that basically the facility is taking waste from a landfill that can be fed into a biomass plant to produce baseload renewable energy. Jurisdictions can procure that attribute, receive a certificate of compliance, rather than trying to figure out what they're going to do with thousands of tons of compost or mulch. And so that's what we went about doing. Pioneer is basically just trying to help facilitate the two parties and getting together to see if that's something that's appropriate for jurisdiction. And then it's up to each jurisdiction to kind of do their own homework and see whether or not this is something that fits within their jurisdiction's needs and priorities.
And I would just like to say, as the chair of Pioneer Community Energy, that I truly appreciate Pioneer staff's work on this effort. They've done a lot of research to make sure that everything is legal and copacetic. And I think that we should be very grateful that we have this opportunity, especially now. This would be a 3-year agreement, and actually Pioneer would be negotiating the contract between us and Greenleaf. We would actually have the contract with Greenleaf, but Pioneer would negotiate that on behalf of City of Auburn and other jurisdictions that will be participating. And I know there are a number of other Pioneer Community Energy participants that are going to be taking advantage of this. So it's a great opportunity. We have to move quickly because there are other jurisdictions that are finding out about these kinds of things and want to buy attributes as well, as opposed to, I don't know, 1,155 tons of compost, which I don't even know what that looks like. How many ball fields is that, Menjol?
It's quite a few, Madam Mayor. And if I may, this was a great opportunity for the city to partner with Pioneer Community Energy to provide this service. The city was not in a position to procure that amount of mulch or compost because that would require us to get additional equipment and additional staff, which we were simply not prepared for at this time. What this really does is buys the city 3 years to look at alternative aspects to do this. This isn't nothing against Pioneer Community Energy, but we don't necessarily know where the state's going to land in 3 years. So this gives us a great opportunity to partner with a partner we already have, and they're very responsible in their approach to this, and it just buys us time.
This is a bigger issue than just buying power. We have to figure out in general what the state's going to do with all these organics. And one of the pieces that I'd hope that we'd pursue as a city is if we can decrease the amount of organics locally, that the legislation gets changed so that way we could decrease the amount we procure. Because right now it's just based on our city size, not based on how much we produce.
Solely based on per capita.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the amount of organics that are produced. It's solely per capita.
Because with
Yeah.
our community, I really think we could get some pretty good reductions, but there's no incentive to do so in the current legislation. So
Yeah.
though I totally support this, I think it's a great idea, but I really want us to remember that we still have this law that doesn't work for us. And this may be a mechanism for dealing with it right now, but we should really be still pushing to get this law fixed so it works for Auburn as well.
And League of Cities has been working very diligently trying to address this, of course, because it's affecting all cities, and counties are also having to comply. So, and they'll be participating through Pioneer too. Are there any other questions from my colleagues? Yes, Councilmember Lamb.
I have a question. I just appreciate the creativity here with Pioneer to find a solution. It's obviously the longer term vision and advocacy needs to be there, but I really appreciate Pioneer's willingness to step forward in this idea and partner with us. So
We were lucky because Colfax City Manager Wes Heathcock and I both sit on Pioneer and the Solid Waste Local Task Force. And so in our dual wearing of hats, we heard this great presentation from Cal Recycle about this. And so we went, oh, this might be kind of interesting, and brought it to Pioneer to see how we could potentially make it work. So I'm just really pleased. Any other questions or comments from the council?
I had one more quick question.
Mhm.
So if we're purchasing, we're purchasing power, correct? From this?
No credits.
We're purchasing just the credits. So
Yeah.
this doesn't alter our contract with
It does not.
Pioneer. It's just simply the credits that are produced by them creating this power for somebody else, but with
Mhm.
this kind of waste product.
Yeah.
So Pioneer Community Energy would essentially be brokering the contract with Greenleaf. The city would be purchasing the credits directly from Greenleaf.
And Greenleaf has a buyer for their power, and they've had a buyer. So we won't, Pioneer will not, Pioneer is simply acting on behalf of its member agencies. There will be an administrative fee for cities and counties that are wanting to participate through this, because we need to make sure that the ratepayers are not paying for this. And so that it's the contract negotiating, there will be a small contract negotiating fee in there, but we do not purchase the power because it's not available for our purchase.
So we have yet another credit market that we have to buy credits for. That's super fun. All right. Thank you so much for explaining that, just to get that out in public statements so everyone understands how.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Councilman Holmes, did you have any questions on this item?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. I'll open it up. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the council. Do I have a motion, council members?
I'll make a motion
All right.
by resolution that we authorize the city manager or her designee to enter into an agreement with Pioneer Community Energy to procure biomass attributes and material on the city's behalf and serve as the facilitator to meet Senate Bill 1383 regulations.
Do I have a second? Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Amara.
Yes.
Berlant.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Mayor Dowden Calvillo.
Aye. Let the record show that the motion has been adopted unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pioneer Community Energy. All right, next item on the agenda, we are taking off item number 8. Councilman Holmes, you requested that item 8, which is the lease agreement between the city of Auburn and Almost Free to All for the building located at 175 Almond Street, otherwise known as the Carnegie Library, and authorize the interim city manager to execute. Councilman Holmes, did you have any specific questions on this
Well,
item?
yes, I do. And because I'm not quite sure who these people, all
Free for all?
free for
Almost
all,
free for all?
who they are and what their background is as far as providing services. According to the lease, there's a number of things that they are responsible to make some improvements and so forth. And I'm also as we have talked, talking about the maybe getting a grant from the California Historical Endowment. So
Yes, and that will not be affected. We can still pursue that. April, are you going to be speaking on behalf of Almost Free for All, Free to All? Free for All? Well, Almost Free to All?
Yes.
Will you be speaking on behalf of the nonprofit umbrella organization that will be signing the lease?
I actually wasn't planning on it, but I could answer to the question about where these people came from.
Sure.
Because they came from the Arts Commission. If do you want me to do that now?
Sure, if you'd like to
Okay.
answer Councilman Holmes' question, that'd be fine.
Sure. Starting back in 2017, when when ACPC had the lease of the building and they had the Olas artist in there, we started, the Arts Commission that had started an effort to have an emerging artist in there. And then by the end of 2017, they gave up their lease. And then we had discussions with Mr. Richardson, the city manager at that point, about having the opportunity to propose a program for that. And then that led into different public meetings and discussions with community groups and individuals about a good use for that. And then coming out of the Arts Commission, there was a campaign of sorts to contact individuals and groups throughout the community, and that evolved into an amazing and broad group of volunteers to form a nonprofit called Almost Free to All. If you notice up above the door, it says Free to All at the library. So that was part of the process to do that. There are many members of the board here tonight, but it's a group that involves a wide array of members of the community. And there was a report on this proposal back in, I think, September of 21, I think. And there was an extensive proposal at that point. It had all the names of the board members and all that. So that's all been before the council.
Yeah. And just Councilman Holmes, just to bring you up to speed, we have been speaking with board members for quite some time on this particular project. We were in exclusive negotiations for the lease for probably about a year. And I know that I've met with their board several times and toured the facility, and I feel very, very comfortable with their handling of the lease and being able to, based on the improvements that are needed at the building. Very excited about this partnership.
Well, part of my concern was the the requirements upon them about making improvements where the funding was coming from. So
Yes, so the city council in one of our past budget, we approved an allocation of $150,000 for both Carnegie and 1103 High Street. And those monies will go to make those improvements. Now, there may need additional improvements that go above and beyond the $150,000, and that will be up to the nonprofit board of directors to raise those funds that through grants or through donations. Certainly, the city can, we don't have a grant writer on staff right now, but we have worked with nonprofits. I think we worked with a nonprofit trying to secure a grant for the School Park Preserve. So, there are some opportunities, and we'll certainly do what we can, but they're very well aware of what the obligations are and what the city's financial commitment is at this time. And they feel comfortable enough to move forward and sign the lease. I see Diane nodding her head. Yes. She's saying, please sign it already. I know.
The other piece is that this building's been empty, and because of it being empty, there were some concerns about its upkeep and being more expensive to repair. So they've been great at stepping up to help to fill that need that's there with this building that we own, but we don't know what to do with.
all right,
So,
okay.
are there any other questions? No? Okay. I'd like to open this item up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? Hearing none. Council, what's your pleasure on this item? Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move that we
Go ahead.
approve by resolution, authorize the city manager and her designee, excuse me. Wait, wrong place.
I'll go ahead.
Okay, here.
Yes, Councilman
You
Berlant.
got it.
Somebody please make a motion.
By resolution, approve the lease agreement between the city and APTA for the use of the Carnegie Library to provide. It would help if I turn that on, to provide affordable, accessible activity spaces in support of art, culture, community, and business serving the Auburn community, and to authorize the interim city manager to execute the agreement with Exhibit A map to be included by staff following this approval.
That's pretty much what I was going to say, so I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Amara.
Yes.
Berlant.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Mayor Dowden Calvillo.
Aye. Let the record show the motion has been adopted unanimously. All right, council, let's move on to the next item. They're so joyous. So congratulations. All right, our next item on the agenda is public comment, and this is an opportunity for any member of the public to address the council on items that are not scheduled for council discussion and action tonight. And please recall that we cannot take any action on said items. We can refer them to staff for potential discussion or action at another council meeting. And I'd like to remind the council members that if you have comments that we'd like to have those mentioned under council reports, if you have any questions or direction or comments, to make those comments there. Any public comment? Hearing no public comment, we'll close public comment and move to council business.
Mayor, I
Yes.
do have one that
Oh,
was received via
I
email.
apologize. Madam Clerk, please go ahead and distribute the public comment that we did receive electronically.
Thank you.
I know.
Oh, there it is.
Let the record show that the council members have been received this email. as public comment previously, so we've had a chance to read it.
That completes public comment.
Thank you very much. And so since we've had that public comment, I know staff, I'm hoping that you'll have an opportunity to perhaps follow up with the individual and address those concerns, or at least discuss them. Thank you. Seeing no further public comment, I'm closing public comment, and we're moving on to item number 11. And item number 11 is consent to participate with the Auburn Recreation District and Skyview Foundation in the development of a multi-use space in the school park preserve to include 3 basketball courts, no, pickleball courts. I want to see if people are listening. Jonathan.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, council members, Jonathan Wright, Community and Economic Development Director. So being the staff member that was in the room part of the time when these things were happening, I felt most qualified to bring this staff report forward. If you'll recall, last year, we actually convened a group that had previously been convened to develop projects in the school park preserve. That group was there to help us with the parks grant that we got for $177,000 and figure out where we could program that, making sure that we weren't doing anything that was, not in conformance with their goals or any of the regulations that were set forth or agreements prior to us doing anything in the park. At a part of that process came the concept for what happens with this area here that's right down below the parking area. It's about 9,160 square feet. Used to be, it looks like an old basketball court, maybe, or just a multi-use area down there. It's paved asphalt. It's right below. If you will go to the EV charging station out here in the back parking lot, you can look down, and it's basically that concrete or the asphalt area right down below there. So out of this process came this concept, which this isn't an unusual concept. We actually came forward with a Clean California grant in, I believe it was either the end of 21 or 22 to develop that as a multi-use area. So this area has been looked at several times by the council. This is be the second time as far as converting it to some type of useful space out there. And the recommendation that's covered, the proposal, the project is coming forward based off of ARD as well as another partnering agent or partnering nonprofit, which is Skyview Foundation, who have both agreed to the burden of 1/3 of the overall cost for development of this site. So what they're asking of city staff or city funding is the other third. So this would be a partnership with those organizations to move this forward. This is not a programmed capital improvement. This is something that is not currently on our capital improvement plan. There's funding has not been allocated for this. That's why there's multiple. You'll see in the funding or the fiscal impacts, you'll see there's multiple proposals there that we could possibly use. The most standard one is when staff gets a project like this, especially from a committee, and especially being so close to budget time, we are able to program that potentially into the capital improvement budget going into the next fiscal year, which of course starts in July. I did speak with Kale from ARD. They are okay with a slightly slower time frame than what they had proposed there. Just realizing that their fiscal cycle just occurred and ours is coming forward. So those could align if council wants us to consider this in the next year's budget. Also, there's the ARPA funds that are available now. Those ones have been programmed for other things, but at council's direction could potentially be repurposed for the purpose of the dollar amount required. And then there's always grants. So we do have the parks grant we already received for the $177,000. I did reach out to the state parks and said, can we retool this and maybe use a portion of that funding to make this happen? They said yes. So I went to the city engineer and said, so what does that do to our project? And he said, based off of the engineering cost, the bidding cost, and then the MOB cost and finding an actual contractor to do it, it would most likely kill that project. So we have to kind of pull that back and look at it in the context of that $177,000 was for ADA improvements as well as pathway restoration in the school park preserve. And if we were to try to allocate, we would really have a hard time trying to accomplish the goals that we originally set out for with that funding. The general fund avenue is what, you know, coming from staff standpoint is a very viable one going forward, but it would be then set against other capital improvement projects, just like all of them are for funding during the next fiscal year. I wanted to state for the record that the total funding amount of $63,400 is being asked of the council this evening. So the direction or what we're seeking from the council tonight is direction moving forward. If first of all, you want to move forward with this multi-use area that includes a pickleball or 3 pickleball courts, and then from which funding source are you asked or directing staff to do this with? So this concludes my staff report, and maybe the city manager has something to add.
I would, excuse me, I would just add in terms of general fund financing, where those monies would be available. We do have a fund balance that these monies could be drawn from and allocated. We also have savings from vacant positions during this current budget year that would be more than sufficient to cover that $64,000.
So we have salary savings that would cover that cost that we have not already budgeted for something else because they were budgeted for the FTEs that we just haven't filled.
Correct.
at this
And
time.
so this would be a one-time expenditure out of those
FTE
monies,
funds.
yes.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Appreciate the report, and Madam City Manager. I'd like to open this up to questions from my colleagues. I'll start with Councilwoman Amara because you're a supporter on this. I mean, you're bringing
Yeah,
this forward.
and just a quick question. I know the answer, but I want you to explain it to everyone. This isn't just pickleball court, right?
No, it's been phrased as a multi-use area. So it includes fencing, lighting, or a lot of surface treatment out there that could then be used for events, gatherings, and so forth. It just happens
So the
to also include 3 pickleball courts.
Yeah, but so they're retractable poles and so it'd be an area that can be used for many, many purposes then.
Very
Okay.
much so. I believe, as far as I understand, the poles can be removed and then that
Sleeve.
they
Slave.
pull
What is
out.
the surface? What is the surface? What, it's asphalt. Okay. Not rubberized asphalt, but just regular. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions,
That's
Madam
it right
Councilwoman?
now.
Councilman Berlant?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Jonathan, thank you for the presentation. A couple quick questions. The grant, the grant we got from State Parks, I know it's for ADA access. Was there anything within the footprint of that blacktop area that was initially part of that grant project? Or are we working within the park, but outside the scope of where improvements were scheduled to be made through the grant?
Actually, part of the projects being proposed is to put a pathway up to that location. So there would be an ADA ramp. We haven't bid this yet. So, you know, funding availability is still one of those things that we don't have certainty on. And because the product is a very unique product, because it's permeable, we cannot source it from all over the place. So we're kind of stuck to the vendors that we have here. So cost is a factor here. But ultimately, the plan going forward would be to put in a ADA access ramp to this potential mixed use, multi-use area.
Got it. So the grant is actually building us the access to this area. There's no actual improvements in that footprint area. That, by the way, used to be the district office. That was its last for the school district. The school district had its district offices there. That was its last usage, but in that footprint, there is no.
I thought it was the playground area.
No, it's the after, yeah.
The-
Yeah, the portables were all there.
Yeah, it's down. below.
Anyways.
It's the playground right down here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
Oh,
we're getting lost in the weeds here, but
Yeah.
my point is that area, there's no work from the grant that's going to be touched. It's already building a ramp to it. Thank you for that. Joan, to your discussion about the dollars, I know you've listed here ARPA as being one of the funds. going back to our presentation from Nathan last month, and we kind of breezed over it, but in there was $150,000 set aside for broadband. It was mentioned, it's in the presentation as well, potential reappropriation. Do you have any updated advice on, that $150,000 of what your thoughts of using that dollars are? Of course, it was referenced that potentially we could reappropriate that. Is that money you're thinking you might suggest as being part of this?
That,
or-
yes, certainly it could be. I don't have updated information on that. Excuse me, Nathan and I have been talking about moving into that discussion during the budget process. We're scheduled, I think, this next week to sit down and start really fine tuning that. But that 150,000 is one of the pots of money that we looked at in ARPA.
So I don't want to get ahead of knowing the assumption of what the majority wants here, but hypothetically, if we did want to move forward with it, could we move forward without giving you specific direction on which fund to use and allow you to come forward back to us to determine what's the most appropriate, whether it be salary savings from the general fund, whether it be unspent money from ARPA, whether it be a reappropriation from ARPA? Do you need tonight, I guess is my question, affirm we want to point to this source, or could we give you direction and you and Nathan and staff find the actual source of dollars?
Yes, yes, you could. And I've made the comment to a council member or two in discussions leading to this meeting that the challenge in addressing a request project like this is we're doing it outside of the budget cycle, which we are in that cycle right now, which started with the mid-year budget review. So yes, you could give that direction. That would allow us then to as we really get into the nuts and bolts of budget preparation, to make a recommendation on where it would make most sense to come from.
That would be in the next budget cycle though, correct? That's what you're talking
It
about.
would be, we're planning to have the budget, you have to have the budget adopted by June 30th.
Mhm.
The anticipated schedule at this point, and I say anticipated, is to try to have it adopted the first part of June. So we're in that process now. You would have that answer with it was certainly within the workshops leading into the adoption of the budget.
And so a little bit then coming back to Jonathan, what you said was, if tonight we did not specify which source, but asked you to work on it, the timeframes in our staff report are flexible enough for us are flexible enough to us, one, commit to doing the project and the money, but to give you the time to schedule it into the budget once you find the appropriate source, pass it in July or in June, but effective July 1st, and still meet ARD and the partners' goals.
Correct.
Okay.
Just to follow up on Councilman Berlant, then I know that in the staff report, you did provide an option. It says general fund. The project could be integrated into the city capital improvement plan for 23-24 and prioritized against the list of capital projects that would be funded over the year, which would be part of the budget process. So I'm assuming that that's what you're stating, is it to roll it into that budget process as opposed to making an allocation right now, right here, right now.
Well, yeah. So what I was asking was, I just want to make sure that if I or somebody agreed on a motion of moving forward with the project, that we could commit to the dollars without determining which of
The
these
funding
sources,
source.
correct? Because yes, it says, and thank you for even flagging it, it talks about, reprioritizing capital improvements. But what I heard you say is we could take salary savings. And so I wouldn't feel comfortable with I'm getting to my comment, but directing Joan or staff to use this source over that source, as I would be saying, yeah, I think this is an appropriate dollar amount that we could figure out, and let staff come back and say, this is where we think we could find the funds, have us in what I think I heard you say was in our normal budgeting
Budget
process.
Yeah.
Correct.
So just, yes, rolling this into the budget.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yes.
for the next fiscal year.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, I agree.
Okay.
My last question, I don't know if this is for Kale, but I'll start with staff. The maintenance of it. In here is discussed that the city would take on the day-to-day maintenance. Obviously, we do have an agreement with ARD for our small pocket parks for doing specifically trash pickup and other things. Just curious, two things. One, why the city versus ARD agreeing to the maintenance? figuring out the financials, I know will be part of this answer. But then two, do we have the staff to pick up doing this maintenance? Because, and I'm kind of answering the part of the question, that's one of the reasons that we have the agreement with ARD to do the pocket parks. So just curious why in this one, for this park, would we do the maintenance?
Maybe I'll have ARD come up to speak to that, but as far as I understand, there would be shared responsibility, especially for the overall larger costs that would be incurred day to day, such as blowing leaves and things like that, which we already do for the parks because we're already available. We're there, that those things would be handled just by city staff as we come to maintain the parks.
Gail, maybe you can confirm now, the more I think about it, School Park Preserve is not a pocket park, which is probably why doing this is not part of that agreement or wouldn't fit within that agreement because we're already doing the rest of the park or somebody is.
That's correct. So School Park Preserve is not on that list. The other thought behind it is you've got staff already out at the School Park Preserve to handle the basic maintenance of a pickleball court. It's going to be garbage collection and blowing off the leaves when they need to be blown off. And if you got somebody out there, as opposed to having to send somebody else over from ARD, that's not on the list. It just made more sense if you're, there. So the biggest thing is it would just be garbage collection on a day-to-day basis.
I think it's important just to note that certainly we expect that the pickleball courts would be utilized and perhaps more garbage. It would be, we'd have to step up our garbage collection or what have you there. So I just think it's important to note that there probably would be an increase, impact to staff just to do that in day-to-day on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So thank you, Kale, for that. And I guess to my last add-on to this question though is, Jonathan, just confirm, do city staff change the trash in the park or does the land trust do that? Is that through a previous agreement that we had with
tag team?
With and I'm not remembering the foundation, but who's doing the maintenance right now in the park?
Mentioned the Public Works Manager, Susan.
Yeah.
City staff is on a rotation cleaning the School Park Preserve currently. Our Public Works staff does that.
How
Yeah.
often do they?
It's on a schedule and I believe they go through there twice a week.
Okay. So
we
not
just-
daily.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is that garbage might need to be collected more than twice a week. I don't know.
So
You can ask people to
for
take their
clarifica-
garbage out.
For clarification, we don't do anything or not much on the area that the pickleball court is currently going to go.
Yeah.
So
Just so I'm not crazy, did we previously though have an agreement with another group that handled both the maintenance of the garden, the lower garden, as well as some of the maintenance work or garbage pickup within the park?
my understanding of the previous agreement was just the garden area. The lower
Okay.
portion, I believe the city staff has always maintained.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the answers.
Any further questions, Councilman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Holmes, do you have any questions?
Well, I just wanted to clarify that when this was a school, that was a recreation area for students. And before we daylighted the what is now the School Park Preserve, the Auburn Elementary School District did have their headquarters in that location where the pickleball court, and they also had a big warehouse in where the School Park Preserve is now.
Okay, well, thank you for the clarification. Councilwoman Riddell Harris, do you have questions?
Just clarity, we're going to do questions and then comments later.
Yes.
Okay. So I do have some questions. So I've been looking, I know how excited some people are about pickleball courts, and I haven't really used them before, but I know my mom uses the ones in Meadow Vista, so I thought I'd do a little research on them. There are some concerns about noise. When I looked up online, there were multiple national news articles about the noise from pickleball courts and lawsuits that had been caused by those. Have we contacted all of the neighbors about the noise, and also that they're going to be putting new lighting up there, about the lighting and how it may impact them? I just want to make sure that they know and they're on board, because I don't want to get lawsuits after the fact that they didn't like the noise that was caused by this court.
We have not contacted neighboring property owners, to be specific. When you just looked at it in the context of the overall ambient noise that's coming off of, you can hear Auburn Folsom right now through the windows here. It seems very much to be right around the same decibel level. I know that I have heard those types of noises before with the pickleball, the back and forth, but generally in an area like this, when you're surrounded by commercial uses, there's, and not necessarily housing, those uses don't necessarily, in fact, if you went out at the parking lot at around noon today, you would have heard some really good rap music coming from the park down there, and certain phrases and terms which can't be said in here. So
And I'm sure that people could call and complain about that. I just don't want them doing the same with the pickleball noises.
right.
That was a good question. That's been discussed.
Okay.
And we determined that there's not that many residences around to that would,
Well, commercial businesses could also complain. It doesn't have to be a residential business.
yeah.
I mean, like
And-
a funeral home with people yelling and pickleball noises in the background wouldn't also be great, and they're right
Yeah.
backed up.
And
to it.
they'll
So I
be-
just want to
they'll
make
be
sure that
informed.
they're aware and that the light and things, I mean, with the way it's placed in that bowl, it would go all the way up to the high school. I heard that it could be heard like up to 100 yards away. So I just want to make sure, can we do a sound study or anything to figure out or get some information, do more research on how far it reaches and make sure we've contacted those neighboring communities?
We
neighbors in the
don't
community?
currently own any pickleball courts, so I'm going to turn this one back over to those who have.
Yeah, do you have outdoor ones that are this closely surrounded by community? I mean, the one regional parks pretty much no
Yeah,
one
the
around
one
it.
right, well, across the street's the school and then the church, so we don't ever get any complaints from them. And Meta Vista, no, there's nobody really close.
There's nobody
I
close.
mean, but I do say, people say that live across Plastows Road, they say they can't hear it, but it's pretty low, but 'cause
Okay.
that's a distance.
That's a long ways.
It's
Yeah.
a long way, so.
Okay.
Certainly there's some noise involved, but I think if you look down there and Sandy acknowledges that there's, I think, and yes, commercial businesses would still complain, but that's also right next to Auburn Folsom Road.
Well, and definitely City Hall would be able to hear it on a regular basis. So we
People have fun.
well, I know, I agree. So we don't have, can we notify the community and get their feedback and the ones within a certain distance? I think that's only fair because we're changing the use of the space. And can we get their thoughts and make sure they have the opportunity to give us their thoughts?
It's a playground at one time. So-
Yes, but how many years ago was that?
Just a few. In my
Okay, so
life.
I used to play there, okay?
Anytime you do anytime you change the use and make a significant shift, you normally inform the community and you let them have some comment on it. So I'm just making sure that we're giving the surrounding community an opportunity to know what's going on and have some comment on it. And I think that's fair. So I just wanted to know if there was a plan to do that. And then the lighting too, some people don't like additional lighting, especially since this would be pretty high. So you'd be able to probably see it at a pretty fair distance. So I just want to make sure that that's covered as well. Can we find out, have we talked to the current users? I know we have quite a few current users that use it on a regular basis. And right now it's not an active recreation place. It's more of a passive place with parks that's really quiet. Have we spoken with any current users to see if they would have any objections to having pickleball courts rather than having a quiet place where they can go walk their dog and things like that? No outreach to them. Yeah.
Sorry, that's actually a really good question. And I don't, and Jonathan wasn't there for all the meetings, but I think it has to be emphasized that the genesis of this whole pickleball court idea, which turned into a multi-use area, was that, we were having so much vandalism. It was so quiet and there weren't as many people there that we sat around and we said, we're upgrading the pathway. But if it's going to be destroyed soon, as you know, the art pieces have been destroyed. Major destruction has been happening. Public Works has to go down there. The police have to go down there. So we solicited APD and APD came up with, I think this was informal discussions with our former city manager. It would be a lot of money for lighting, alarms, increased security, and the costs that Public Works is spending. So we said, what can we do? We said, let's increase the usage. We need people down there. We need visibility. We need people walking through the parks. And this was a comment made by Skyview and all the partners. So at that point, we decided, let's contact ARD because pickleball is very popular. It's always in use. As you know, your mom plays it. So ARD came and they said, it is feasible. And yes, there's a major opportunity here to bring in a lot of people into town for businesses, help our businesses, and hopefully shop. And ARD says it's feasible, we'll kind of help you out if we can. And then it just went from there. But it's, I mean, we're looking at the negative, which we have to look at.
Yeah.
But the
I'm just making-
positive
covering
that
our-
we're hopefully going to derive, and I think Kale can speak to how usage helps. Maybe you haven't been here long enough, but Ashford Park was just a real problem until they increased usage in a very creative way, making it a dog park. And I don't think they have as much problem as they did prior. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in to help answer your question.
And I totally get that. And if it wasn't going to be used for something that made this much noise, I probably wouldn't have all these questions. I just want to make sure we're not making it so the people who do enjoy a quiet park are uncomfortable there because they don't have a quiet park anymore. So that's all I'm asking about, is making sure we're meeting the needs of those residents who have enjoyed it for many years, and it would very much change the feeling of the park.
But
And
I
so
don't
just
think
wanna
they've
make sure
enjoyed
we've done-
the vandalism and the language and the drug stuff that's going
So
on.
what I,
Speaking of which, can I ask the police chief Chief Canan? Can I ask you a question? So pickleball is normally something that happens between the hours of like 8 and 8, I would assume. How much vandalism happens during those times versus in the middle of the night when no one would be there? I'm just curious if we have a lot of daytime vandalism that this would help mitigate, or if it's more of a nighttime issue where we need to do additional measures on top of this.
O'Brien Canan, Police Chief. I don't have that specific answer. I know when we start talking about crime and safety, we do talk about CPTED quite often. So crime prevention through environmental design. Many of those things we've talked about already. More people in the parks. I mean, in looking at just the snapshot, the surrounding of the pickleball it's got a 6-foot chain link fence around part of it. It's got a brick wall and the chain link fence on a part of it. And the lighting does help. One of the things about School Park Preserve, many people have talked about it's where the youth are going. To be honest, the youth have always gone down there and wreaked havoc. So, as a city, one of the things we've done is start putting in some cameras and the lighting. And I think we're very close to actually finalizing the cameras with our Public Works crew. And, again, as I think this plan goes along and moves forward, wherever that ends up, is having that conversation, where does maybe additional cameras go?
Okay.
Those
We'll do
cameras.
those anyway.
Yep. And so those cameras are linked back into the PD. And so we're able to kind of see those things from a live perspective.
So has,
but I'm gonna just let Councilwoman Riddell Harris to finish her line of questioning and then.
yes, okay, we have a new guy.
Do you think that do you think that the youth are going to be attracted to the pickleball courts as a way of keeping themselves busy, or are we going to still have issues just in a different part of Auburn?
It's a great question. I can't predict the future on that one, but again, it goes back to kind of that conversation of if people are there, and I would certainly encourage all the pickleball athletes to call when they see those things happening and letting us know that there's a problem down there. And again, the more presence we can have, the more presence that just the community can have down there does deter some of that stuff.
Okay, thank you. I had this might be a Kale or maybe a Jonathan or a question. So we have a lot of events at the park, like that would require silence, like ballets and music, and people rent it out. I went there for my kids' preschool graduation. How would the reservations work for this? Would we not allow it whenever we have events? We need to make sure that people have access to the park and to use it for other purposes. So would they need like 2 months notice and then we can cancel any day that we want to for whatever events people reserve? Or how would that work? Because park's not only for that purpose.
Right. Well, I'm not sure how your reservation system works, but usually when we have to close down our courts, 2 weeks notice is more than enough time. We just put up signs. And then for the day of, because we are talking about sleeved posts, you can just pull the posts out and
Okay.
they don't have anything
It's
to
more
play
just
on.
not having the noise than
Right.
having the thing.
Right. Yeah.
So would ARD be doing, because I hear that there's reservations needed for pickleball courts and things because people.
No, our pickleball courts are all drop in.
Okay, it's all
Yeah,
drop in.
yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
First serve, first come, first serve.
Yeah. They've got some sort of weird, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like system, I guess you want to call it, of how they get in, and it's, it takes an algorithm to figure it out, but they know. And I think, by the way, you made them feel really good, Chief, when you called them athletes. So
Pickleball athletes. We'll open public comment in just a moment, sir.
Okay.
All right.
I think that's great. Thank you for the answer to the questions. I just have still a few concerns, but that was all my questions. Thank you.
Councilman Holmes, you have a question?
Well, I would like to suggest that if we are going to approve this with the provision that the city comes back with the preferred way of funding it with the city dollars, that gives us ample time to talk to people in the neighborhood and that kind of stuff to determine whether they're
But
going
we,
to be.
but we wouldn't want to approve it before we've talked to everyone. So we would want to
It
wait.
would, yeah, it would depend on what the council wishes to do. Certainly, there is an option to defer formal approval of the project until it comes through the budget process, or it can be motion for approval tonight. So it would depend on the majority of the council, but that is certainly a possibility, Councilman.
Yeah.
Councilman Amar, did you have other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay. So I was interested just in the opportunity for public comment. I mean, just from the neighbors, and it sounds like we haven't really noticed anybody. It's been in the paper. We have noticed our agenda, but there hasn't been any extra notice on that. Okay, good. All right, Councilman Holmes, do you have a question?
Councilman Berlant does.
Oh,
Um,
Councilman Berlant?
I have two questions, lots of good, and this isn't to negate some of the questioning, but I just want to be clear on this space. It's currently zoned as what? Do you know that answer?
Open space.
And I guess, let me keep asking more of my question, because maybe that's the answer. Is it a change in the use of it versus is this just actually using it more than it's being used?
I would look at it as you're adding a use to a park,
Yeah.
but it's not changing the use because parks are primarily designated for recreational facilities. And different types of parks activities can go on there. There's all types of uses that generate sound that already go on down there that could occupy that park. But no, it's for recreational purposes. And as far as I know, the athletes would say that it's recreational.
But
They're
and I guess-
loving
but the
that.
point of my question, again, not to negate, because I think we need to have this discussion of what does noticing and communication look like. But from a technical planning perspective, it's not a change in use. So it wouldn't trigger an actual formal noticing that goes out to a certain radius around it, correct?
No.
Okay.
And as far as you can see that it's an infill project, so it's exempt from CEQA.
Yeah.
so,
And then the last follow-up that I had is, I know that
Or existing
the
facilities.
current grant that we received was to do the ADA access. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, this is not the first time, even in your tenure, that we have moved forward with a proposal to use that space. I thought there was a matching grant that was moved forward to actually do the infrastructure upgrade. And so we have been talking about reutilizing this space in some other format than just a vacant playground / foundation of the district office.
That's correct, Councilman. That was the Clean California grant. I
Yes.
guess it was either last year or late the year before.
So the short answer, question, I guess, then before we get to all of our comments about it is, what would you recommend based on the questions that you've heard tonight? What would maybe your recommendation be of how do we communicate this to the neighbors? And how do we figure out the appropriate sound level or any of that stuff? And not to put you on the spot because we've just been asking now, but to kind of keep us moving, do you have a recommendation?
I mean, if you look at standard planning processes, you provide notice and opportunity.
Mhm.
We did provide notice here tonight because it was published. The agenda is posted. And so people that were interested in affairs of the city do have the opportunity. Do we capture everybody in that net? Generally not. But we've given what standard opportunity is for the public to come in and comment and provide input to this process. And I think you have members of the public here tonight that would love to speak on it that otherwise received that notification and are here.
Great. Thank you. I know we'll probably have multiple comments of our ideas
Yes.
of what that looks like, but thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Traditionally, when we're changing something, even if it has the same use, I mean, like we were talking about doing it one way and things like that, normally we give some kind of notice to neighbors so they have the opportunity, because not, the majority of people don't watch the newspaper and don't necessarily look at our really exciting agendas on a regular basis. So if we're trying to call attention to a certain percent population, we normally notify them directly. Is that not true?
That would be a policy statement, not something that.
Councilwoman Riddell Harris, is your microphone on?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank
Sorry,
you.
I was just saying that, I was just saying that normally when we have something that changes that significantly impacts a particular neighborhood, we would normally let that neighborhood know because most of them aren't necessarily watching our agendas and that's reasonable. So I just was wondering if that's how things typically go, but I didn't, I just didn't know for
That's a
sure.
policy judgment call by the city
Okay.
manager. It's
That's what
not a land use at this point
Yeah. Okay.
requirement.
The other question I had is, since we're not necessarily a Parks and Rec department, but we do have parks. Normally, Parks departments will have a park plan where they do get public comment on what things are going to be used for. So that way there can be a decision and kind of a talk about all the options and then to select things. Should we put this into our planning process so that way we can plan our parks now? Because if we're going to be not having them be passive parks with just trails, but actually active parks where we put in courts and we do recreational active activities, should we be planning that out rather than just picking and choosing certain things?
I think April can speak to that better, but wasn't there a park plan put together for the park at one point?
Unless.
But that's not a official planning process where we went through and that was just approved by council.
So, yeah, we have an agreement with ARD for all of our park mitigation monies, and we've had that agreement in place for multiple, decades now. And so they are, for all intents purposes, serve as our.
But we're talking about changing our parks from a passive park to an active
Mhm.
park, because in the past, we've barely, we maintain them once or twice a week and they just
Mhm.
have trails rather than having active park
Mm.
activities. And so I'm just saying, if we're going to switch over to more of an active park, then we should probably start doing the activities and planning and community outreach that an active park needs to have. So food for thought.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Councilman Berlant, do you have a
There's-
follow-up
public
question?
is eager to talk to us. Kel, it's a good question that I want to ask the same to you is, because this is also an ARD park. So what does your planning process look like as far as how has ARD moved forward with putting this into the queue, soliciting public comment, et cetera? This is, what's proposed is a shared
Mhm.
park, but just curious, what does public comment or public participation look like for ARD with this park and all your parks in general?
Well, specifically to this one, just last month, we kind of looked at our tennis and pickleball program as a whole and trying to decide what we want to do, if we want to shift some things around. So we had last summer, we, put information out, and this was kind of before we started in this process, getting comments back from the public about pickleball and tennis. We got 98 total comments back, written comments, and used them. We had a series of meetings, and including this last one, we had, I don't know, you guys were there, maybe 15 people or 15 to 20 people to come speak on it. So we've got pretty good public participation. And I think in the end, the plan was we kind of came up with a plan, what we're going to do with our pickleball and tennis course, but also encourage folks to come out. Let's support this, because this is a great way for us to get, what we really need is more pickleball courts in the area. They're very expensive to build. And this partnership is going to allow us to do them at something we can all afford. The land's there, it's relatively flat. We have to do some work on it, but it's, with the partnership, it's something we can all grab onto. So that seemed to be the general consensus, that I think everybody seemed pretty happy with it. I don't want to speak for everybody's here, but we've had plenty of participation, I guess is what I'm saying in a really long sentence.
Okay, thank you, Kel.
All right. Are there any other questions? I know I have my own comments that I would like to make after we have public comment, but Madam City Manager, do you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. I have
Would you have a comment?
And it's to the noticing. Another way to do that, if that's the direction of council, is to actually post the property.
Mhm.
And that's become a very common process in municipalities up and down the state. And it simply is a sign that you post on the property, indicating public notice
Mhm.
and what the proposed use is
Mhm.
and who to contact with any comments.
I really like that idea a lot, because that would get to the users of the park and give them an opportunity to comment. Thank you very much, Madam City Manager, for making that comment. All right. If there are no further questions, I'd like to open this up to public comment. And what I'd like to request is that in the order, in terms of trying to help facilitate this process, that we don't duplicate comments. So if you just want to get up and state your name and say I'm in support, that's fine. Or I echo the previous speaker, that's fine. But I just don't want to have duplicative comments. So I'll just make that request. The second request is that I'd like you to please hold your applause. We did this with another item and it was very well received. Jazz hands, if you feel compelled to express your appreciation for the previous speaker, the jazz hands works great, and we can just keep moving along because I know we all want to move along. So with that, I'm going to open public comment unless you have a comment.
I'm just going to do it as public comment,
Gail?
I guess. Yeah.
You have a comment? Okay.
Yeah. So
we'll-
start to, I love your clock. We got to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Public
Um,
comment is open.
Okay, so real quick, just some clarification. So we talked about the lights. They'll be on 22-foot poles. So while they'll be up, they're not ball field lights that are 40, 50 feet in the air. So they are, and they're LEDs. So they're going to be really directed down at the courts, putting the light on the court. So that will help some with the light pollution. Sandy stole a lot of my thunder, but I just, real quick, I think the story about Ashford Park, it was something that we were aware of at the time. I think most of you know the stories about what used to happen at Ashford Park. And I'm not saying it solved everything out there, but it's gotten noticeably better. And the really bad things that were going on, we haven't heard about. So basically the concept is bringing people out with cell phones, bringing responsible adults and members of the community out with cell phones to the area. And the same concept right over here, you're going to bring people to the area that they see things going on that shouldn't be going on. They're going to make some calls. And it kind of makes the unwanted people causing the problems a little uncomfortable. They maybe don't want to come back. So that's, I know we already talked about that, but just real quick, I'm going through my notes. And as was talked about, there's a really good partnership on this, and to stress that this is a multi-use court facility, I should say, that I think April's going to talk about some other things that can be used for, but to bring the community in to get this improvement there, I've been talking with Sandy about this, but striking while the iron's hot. We got a hot iron right now. We got people very interested in moving forward on this, and I would hope that we can find a way to move forward, because I think this is going to be a great thing for the community.
Thank you. Next public comment.
April Maynard, Chair of the Auburn Arts Commission. And I just want to remind the council, or perhaps it's new information, that back in 2017, the Auburn Arts Commission was hoping to use that space for, it was called Sculpt Art. It was going to use bicycle parts, and it was going to have a public space. And it was really, it disappeared because the potential of getting lighting in that space on a temporary basis was prohibitive. It was just immense. And so we've been advocating now since then that the School Park Preserve space be on and last year in our budget request, we made the recommendation to council that it be included in the capital improvement plan, and that didn't happen, and didn't even have a line item, let alone with a zero. So that's ironic. But it has been the position of the Auburn Arts Commission that to make this town vibrant and active, and to support and enhance visual and performing arts, we need people to come. We need people out and about. We need people walking back and forth. We need people to recognize this place as an active place and not stuck. Not stuck. And this is an excellent partnership that was evolved. And the fact that it would be multi-use is an exciting place, because that could be, I mean, we feel like the whole park has to be activated, and it's been ignored and neglected, as a matter of fact, in terms of its maintenance and its improvements. But after every weekend, we were talking about the trashing that had been done to the park every single week, and actual destruction, not just spray paint, but destroying things. And it's old news at this point, but the former city manager, it sat in on these meetings and talked about the activation being the answer to the use of to the maintenance and the salvation of the space that was being destroyed week after week. So both in terms of the Auburn Arts Commission and having spaces for performance and visual arts, this would dovetail into using an asset and improving it and making it actually useful, instead of broken down asphalt that we've been trying to get improved now for years. And along with that ADA access up to the space. The other part of it is that being also from the Downtown Business Association, we've been advocating walking, connecting Old Town to downtown, and this is central area. And if we could get a walking loop that goes through through the here and down in connecting to Old Town, that would also be an economic driver and an activation of the space and vibrancy and activity, and that's what we need.
Thank you very much. I know, just made it. She must have timed herself. Yes.
Hi, my name is Sue Engel. I'm your newest ARD board member. And I'm here because I want you to know I am in support of this project. I'm not talking for the whole board. Jim can do that. But I am in support of this project because I've received so many emails in support of more pickleball courts. But I would also like to see the ADA access from the upper parking lot, which is right behind here, this parking lot and the one down below. So when you do your access, make sure that if I park up here, I can get down there, or if I park down below, I can also get to that space. The other thing I wanted to tell you is today I'm a member of the community garden with Sandy and others, and it looks down over the area where the kids vandalize, and I've watched it all year, and it's really disturbing. I've been over to the police station. I'm really glad to see Chief Ryan is being very proactive with having his officers go down there at lunchtime. But today, the boombox was just so obnoxious and loud. They had a guy was out there mixing drinks, alcohol. This was at 1 o'clock, and they were smoking pot. So it is a problem down there. And I think that by putting the pickleball courts there and having more adult presence down there, just might move this somewhere else, which I sure would like to see that, because it's a very beautiful, peaceful park. And it would be nice to see shouts of joy instead of loud, obnoxious rap music.
Might have both.
Double the fun.
Yes, congratulations on
Thank
your-
you, Sue.
Next public comment. Thank you for coming up and sitting in the front row so that we can expedite this.
Thank you very much. Michael Shealy, District Landscape Architect for Auburn Recreation District. I just wanted to bring a couple of points that haven't been discussed so far this evening. One that ARD is happily and willing to donate, although what would be consultant time in preparing construction documents, doing bid administration and construction administration for the project. And secondly, just wanted to talk briefly about the lighting system that we're proposing for the multi-use area. It's not just high quality LED lighting for pickleball use, but these are programmable and controllable and Bluetooth controls, and can be set to any type of setting that the city would like, including CPTED settings, crime prevention through environmental design. At night when pickleball is over, these lights can be set to be motion sensing, not to come on full blast, but to come on lightly and act as a security assistance throughout the evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Next individual. There we go. Jazz hands, telling you, that's the future.
Hi, Kelly Davis. I'm just a neighbor. I just want to second Councilwoman Riddell Harris's request for a sound study. I know personally my massage therapist is in the parking lot right next there. It takes a ton of work to stay on top of agendas and knowing what's going on in the city. So, saying it's posted is tough for families and people who are not 100% engaged in this. So it would be interesting to do some type of evaluation, or at least inform the people who are, immediately next to this, because I mentioned it to her, and it would be a bummer to get a massage and hear pink, 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 pink for that amount of time. So thank you for mentioning that. And I just happened to be here because I was talking to Sue this morning. I was sitting in the park this morning, and it was beautiful. And I thought it'd be so nice if there were just more like natural elements for kids, and it would bring, more traffic. So I'm happy it's being looked at, and I can appreciate that the ping, ping, ping sound could be something to look at. So thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment.
Preston Montague, longtime resident of Auburn. My first question is, doesn't the police department make a lot of noise when they leave? I would think that would be the biggest concern from noise around here, that you got sirens going. I don't know. I don't live here, but do they make sirens? You guys quiet
Nope.
when you leave? Yeah, no noise. Second, there's a big mural that's been planted out of the regional park that's been there for 2 years, hasn't been touched. It's a gorgeous mural of the waterfall off of Clementine. You've been out there. So we haven't seen any vandalism. We haven't seen any destruction of those because the people are going by there. Third point, if you really want quiet, bring in tennis, but I don't think that's an option. So, the parking lot is surrounded by, the facility is surrounded by parking lots. If you look at the map, I pulled it up. There are parking lots on all three sides and in the park up towards the high school side. So it's not really unbuffered. There's a lot of spaces between where the pickleball players are going to be and where the space is. So I think that's something, again, when you do your sound, look at compare that to where us tennis players have to play next to the pickleballers. We're right next to them and it's allowed. But as you get across the street over by the high school, down in the regional park, it's not an issue at all. The other point is you're bringing people downtown. I mean, if you go down here where they have drinks and shops and bakeries and, maybe even massage therapists, they might need one after, where you have customers and businesses, all of a sudden you're going to have people coming to your park. I don't know the difference between a passive park and an active park. A park is supposed to be places where people want to go all the time. It should always be active. It shouldn't be, if you want an old private spot, go hike by the river somewhere where you can find a quiet location. But a park is inside city surroundings where you can sit there and enjoy what you'd like to do, but other people ought to enjoy it. And this is kind of a hidden spot. I mean, hidden enough where we've got people coming in and doing things they ought not to. But I didn't really know about it because when I was, this was always a school. And so I think that is probably one of the reasons it's become what it's become is because it hasn't been properly used. So there needs to be more people coming in and make it active, you'll get kids from the high school coming down and probably playing pickleball afterwards and doing other things. So I think there's a lot of benefits if you consider the whole engagement of everybody that wants to use it. The Chapel of the Hills has been here since forever. And if you think this is going to be loud, wait till you get, a couple hundred grammar school kids out playing in PE. Running out there. They're used to the noise. They're probably your closest people to that. And they've been able to work that out. I don't know if they didn't have, PE or recess on the days they had funerals. I don't know how they did that, but they've been there forever. I actually put the railing in there back when I was younger. So my suggestion is that you go forward with this, consider all the options. I certainly think that you can talk and see if there's a big issue. You can go out and bring 3 people out and hit pickleball for an hour and see if people recognize it and just put it's kind of ruddy, but you can put a net up and hit it back and forth. So that's my recommendation to move forward with this.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Hi, my name's Bob Gilliam. I'm president of Skyview Foundation. So one thing I want to do is verify that we're on the hook for 1/3 of the funding. You don't have to worry about that. The committee that's been meeting over the last several months that you've heard about that have updated this plan and came up with this idea included representatives from Skyview Foundation, Placer Community Foundation, Auburn Arts Council, City Council, and Placer Land Trust. Placer Land Trust oversees the conservation easement and compliance with the legal requirements of that. One thing on just a couple random comments based on what's been said. One kind of interesting historical note is that the original plan for the approved park as a fully developed park was to have the Boys and Girls Club use that parking area and elevated area that we're talking about. It would have been a much more intense use actually than pickleball courts. It would have had an outside player, but to make a long story short, the parking requirements and the building size constraints on that site made it a less preferable site for the Boys and Girls Club. That's why that's still vacant. So I wanted to touch on the importance of timely funding here. We have the existing grant you've heard about for the pathways and the ADA access. And that really ideally needs to be done in really close coordination with resurfacing and working on the upper elevated area. The work to do the elevated area is going to require taking passage over protected areas and over some of the existing pathways that have to be restored anyway. So the timing of it is ideally to do the pickleball, we'll call it the pickleball multipurpose use project first, and then come in behind it with fixing the ADA access and the pathways. And yeah, timing with the multi-use space. And I guess the other thing timing wise is just taking advantage of the momentum here, the generous offer and follow through with ARD doing all the planning and design work as part of the project. Their offer to do a third of the funding. Skyview's offer to do a third of the funding. We've kind of got it narrowed down to, I think, a really doable project that has a lot of benefits you've already heard about. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
One of your pickleball athletes, or,
Woo.
well, in my earlier days, will call me an athlete. I just want to say that, yes, there is some noise to pickleball. I work at an elementary school. I'll tell you, noise is a constant, and you're not going to make every single person happy, no matter which way you go. I just hope Auburn realizes that we could actually be at the forefront of something instead of trying to catch up. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the nation, and actually it's worldwide. I mean, I just started playing, if you count COVID, 5 years ago, and I've been down south. Always find a pickleball court, and people are so welcoming. Went to Nevada, down in Henderson, Las Vegas, pickleball everywhere. I mean, it's not just for us older people that used to be athletes, but kids are coming. I mean, we've had church groups come. We've had grandparents with their grandchildren come. Everybody can play this sport. And the use in Midtown, let's call it, would be great. It would bring all varieties, ages of people into town. And I just really hope you want to be involved and in the forefront of the idea of having pickleball in town instead of on the outskirts. Let's bring everybody together. Thank you. My shirt.
Hi, Veronica Blake, CEO at Placer Community Foundation. I'm going to honor the mayor's request and say everything everyone else said I agree with that's in favor of the park. I would just also say that the foundation has a long-term investment in the school park preserve. We were one of the funding partners. Janice Forbes, our founding board chair, partnered with Bob and the Skyview Foundation and Susan Cooley to get that park off the ground along with the city. So we see this opportunity to leverage the city's money with Skyview and with ARD is a huge opportunity, and hope that you'll take that into consideration. Then now I'd like to speak as Veronica Blake, a citizen of the city of Auburn. I actually walk the city of Auburn pretty regularly. If it's not raining, I'm doing laps around the city, and I spend a lot of time in that park. And it is a unique and special gathering place, and we would benefit from more activation there. So I want to encourage you to look at it from a citizen's point of view. The more the merrier in a park. My office is across the street, right next to the courthouse. No noise issues coming from the park. We're not worried about noise and that. If we were going to worry about that, we'd be worried about Jake breaks. That makes more noise in the city. So I'm really excited about the opportunity, and I encourage you to vote in favor of the project.
Thank you. Additional public comment. Look at that, all those Jan's hats. Come on up. That's, yeah. 2 for you.
Walk fast, Jim.
Use it well.
My name's Jim Gray. I'm the ARD board chair. I've been on ARD 23 years as a board member. I've gone through a lot of things with city councils, different city councils. This is one of the best collaborative ones I've dealt with in dealing with the city. You have 3 programs that all want to come together to make Auburn a better community. I agree, pickleball is increasing. I play it. They suck me in. I play it. Sorry, I look like this right now. Nobody can look as good as Chief Ryan all the time, but I just came from the football field from practice. But I do have with 35 years of Sac County probation and ARD for 23 years, that by putting what you're going to put down there, you're going to have a lot of people that come to play pickleball that are going to monitor your park. These guys mentioned a couple parks, but I've been on a lot of chairs where I've had pickleball yelling at me, tennis yelling at me, and I'm trying to keep the peace. But the overall thing, when we put the skate park in, it didn't go so well at first, but it's keeping Overlook at bay now. We don't have half the traffic over there. We got it fenced off a little bit, but it got cameras over there. We've got Railhead. The same thing happened. That was a bunch of rocks before. Now it's a field. We did lights on one side, not the other side, to keep the street happy. We've done a lot of things, but everything with environmental impact you're going to have to do probably with this. The things I think overall, the lighting is probably going to be the newest lighting system that you can have, which is not going to be so, it's going to be more LED like we have on football fields. It's more condensed on the field and it doesn't spray out. That's going to be nice, because if you look at where your park's going, the light's going to go off that way toward the direction of the trail. I've gone on that trail at night, and there is people sometimes you don't want out there. And it's just the nature of the beast that you're dealing with right now. But it sure would help to have the right amount of the right people that are going to come to pickleball that I've been associating with. That's going to help keep it down a little bit, and not so much Chief Ryan sending officers over there when he needs to be doing other things in town, not watching a pickleball court. It is an eyesore. You all know that. That's been like that since the modules were on there for the school district. It needs a cleaning up. I think this end of the park needs a clean up. The Arts tried to do it. I think the Arts we've worked with them too. They're kind of declining a little bit. But I think when you get a program where you can pull the poles out and still have an art show set up, that's going to be awesome. It's going to reflect on the city, and it's going to reflect on the ARD that we did a good thing for the taxpayers of this area. So I strongly support Sandy. You've got me on board, and I hope this venture goes through, and whatever ARD can help, we will do as a board. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Additional public comment?
Hi, my name's Connie Brocker, and I have lived here since 1966, and I used to play on that playground down there.
Me too.
Yeah, it was
We probably
awesome.
played at the same time.
And it is, it was nice when you first did all of the like treescapes in there and everything, but I walk a lot through Auburn as well. And I have seen a lot of, especially after the high school gets out, the high schoolers go down there and they're smoking pot and they're,
That's what high schoolers do.
yes, yeah, typical.
Whether
If
you
I was
buy or
back
not.
then, I did it too back then. Just saying.
We think this is going to stop them from doing that. That's not.
Yeah.
And
space.
Oh,
My
yeah.
past, sorry.
All right, let's move on. Point.
But anyway, I just want to say, I'm really in support of seeing something wonderful done there to bring more people, and that's all I want to say. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional public comment?
Mayor, I have
Yes.
a public comment both on the Zoom meeting and one that was received via email just today, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
This
And just-
email's been provided to the city council and is available in my office as public record. It is an email in support of the project. And then I believe Ralph on Zoom would like to make a public comment. Ralph, I unmuted you if you would like to speak.
Well, thank you. Yeah, my name is Ralph Eccles, and I'm a lifelong resident of Auburn and a recreation district and the taxpayer from both directions. And I request the council to participate fully in the funding partnership with the Recreation District and the Skyview Foundation to develop this multi-use space there, and including 3 lighted pickleball courts. I too am a Lincoln Way Elementary School alma mater person, and I hope the city council will adhere as best you can with, funding issues to the adhere to the described timeline that's in the staff report. And if I could do jazz hands on Zoom, I would, but you'd probably rather not see me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, are there any other online comments at
I
this
do
time?
not have any more public comment.
All right. Any last public comments? All right, I will close public comment and direct that back to the council. I didn't really have any questions on this, but I would just like to start the comments and say that I appreciate the collaborative nature of this project with the foundation as well as ARD and the city. And thank you to Councilwoman Amara for her participation in these efforts. As someone who does, or I use the school park preserve probably more when my daughter was young in a passive capacity, taking her out there for walks. We would walk from our home to the park and just really enjoyed it. I think that, pickleball is up and coming. Certainly lots of participants have received a lot of public comment, and I'm sure my colleagues have as well. And I'm very, as I've mentioned, I'm supportive of pickleball. It's a great opportunity to get people moving. We are the endurance capital of the world, and it's important that we continue to promote our outdoor activities and so forth. I like the fact that I'm hopeful that if we did have pickleball here, folks would play pickleball and then go have some lunch or have some coffee and do a little shopping, and stay in town and, to help our businesses as well. I am sensitive, and I do respect and appreciate the comments that Councilwoman Riddell Harris raised with regards to just notifying the neighbors to let them know that this is a proposed use. Pickleball can be loud. I just got back from Hawaii, and as I was running along my route, I heard these pang, and I thought, what is that? And they used to have a tennis court, and now it's been converted to pickleball. And so it kind of caught me off guard for a second. I went, aha. But people were enjoying themselves, having a great time out, like I said, being active outside, and really loved that. And so I also liked our city manager's suggestion about posting the property so that those that utilize the park would have the opportunity to know what's going on in there. And really, it's to stymie the complaints that could be registered afterwards. I think that public comment and being as transparent as possible is always a good thing, especially for us as elected officials, and making sure that we, are doing the public's work. But I'm supportive of pickleball. I think that Councilman Berlant had made a suggestion that we would direct staff to come up with the appropriate recommendation on financing, whether it be through salary savings or pushed into the CIP, but essentially having it come back in the budget process. And given that funding would likely go that way, I don't think that any of us, I didn't hear any opposition to that. I would like to see us just maybe do a 30-day notification, just to give those, notify the neighbors. I don't know how far we would need to notify, if it's 100 yards or whatever, but mostly to post the property, just so that those folks that use the park would just be aware of what's going on and would have the opportunity to ask questions if they had them. But again, really just trying to thwart off any criticisms or complaints that we might otherwise get, because we just, and I appreciate the work that ARD has done to get this out, and the pickleball community. You guys are out there, you are active, and you are engaged. And so this is your project, and you are going to be here. But I just want to make sure that other folks just have the same opportunity to understand what the project is. But I think it's a great use of the site. It's just open space right now. I love the fact that we had the ADA grant already approved that would bring an ADA access right to the site. So I'm very supportive of it, but I would like to just see a little bit of notification, just so that we do our due diligence and keep it transparent. So those are my comments, and I'd like to go ahead, and I'm going to start with Councilman Holmes. Did you have a comment?
Well, basically, I agree with what you've already said. So rather than
Jazz hands.
yeah.
Thank you, Councilman Holmes. Councilman Berlant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with everything you said. I'm not going to do jazz hands, but I really do appreciate first all of our partners. Actually, all three of you sitting in the front row represent different organizations, and I do really appreciate the amount of energy that's gone on. As April Maynard from our Arts Commission has said, I say we, but her. And others have spent a lot of time to try to figure out what to do with that space. And again, I just remind us all that, we submitted a grant to do more, but I agree. I think we need to make sure that all of the property owners around there and the people who frequent the park know that it's coming and have an opportunity to have a say. So I really appreciate what I heard you say, which was this idea of moving forward, asking staff to find it in the budget of where is the most appropriate place, spend the time. I don't think we need to do necessarily a sound study, but I think the noticing makes a lot of sense, and then bring it back here for us to give final approval. But really appreciate the amount of work that I know has gone into this, because if I'm not mistaken, this is really probably a couple years of effort to even get us to this place. And some of those initial discussions were us, actually all the discussions have been us footing the bill. And so to really have the opportunity here, the unique opportunity to split the cost. Obviously, I have a little bit of concern about the maintenance part of things, because that those would be our our long-term costs that we would inherit for that. I think that's all doable and workable. I just want to make sure that we're not putting on the backs of our limited staff without really thinking through. But in reality, for me at least, it's not just about this 9,000 square foot area that was the district office foundation and the playground area, but it's how are we maintaining the rest of the park? And it just makes sense that if whoever is picking up that trash swings by and picks up the other trash. But I'm a huge proponent of us reutilizing space. It is dead space. And in fact, I think that it really attracts the type of behavior we don't want in our park, with it just being somewhat hidden up above. And so you can do a lot of nefarious things. I have spent time like the rest of you. Well, now that the chief has talked about the cameras, I think the lighting goes into, that it really will deter it. And so full support and look forward to us continue to move it forward with bringing back the opportunity for the property owners around us to hear and be noticed. Thank you.
Councilwoman Riddell Harris.
Thank you. I really appreciate everyone coming out tonight. I know pickleball is very passionate. You guys really enjoy your sport, and I think it's great that you guys came out. I think the pickleball courts would be a good addition to our community. I think they would be great in the park. I just want to make sure that we're covering our bases and doing our due diligence, because when I was looking it up online, I saw a LA Times article that talked about lawsuits in South Carolina, California, New Jersey, British Columbia, also other things that came up. There was a whole Bryant Gumbel Real Sports thing on pickleball and how people have an opposition to it for being too loud. So I'm just like, I don't know much about how loud it is. I haven't been around it a lot, but I just want to make sure we're covering our bases and that we give enough opportunity for the community to comment, that when they complain about it, we can say, you had the opportunity, we gave you a letter or a note or whatever it was, and you chose not to come here. You had your chance. So I'm just trying to make sure we're covering our bases so we don't end up in a tough spot for the city. As far as the budget goes, I support putting it in the budget. And if it gets prioritized, there's enough money to do it, I'm up for totally paying for our portion of it. I'm a little concerned because we do have general plan stuff that we need to get done. And also we're renegotiating our MOUs, and I want to make sure we can support any changes to salaries that need to happen out of those MOUs. And I would prioritize that over pickleball, though I think that pickleball is important. We need to make sure we're taking care of our staff and taking care of our regulatory and state requirements as a city first. But as long as we have enough money in the budget, I'm fully supportive of us paying our piece and moving forward. Thank you.
Councilwoman Amara.
Thank you. So I want to start out with pickleball people are really nice people. So I think they're going to do really well if we have a pickleball court, and they're going to help us a lot. So anyway, Also, kids are playing pickleball too. We have to understand that it's not just for adults, it's for kids too. It's going to be a great use. But with that being said, I just want to say this has been a project that I've been talking about for over a year. And I've talked at Medlars, I've talked about it when I was mayor, and I have never received any opposition. So what I hear tonight, I'm very encouraged. I'm very happy that we're all supportive. And, you know, the biggest thing here is that we're going to increase, to me, one of the biggest things that we'll bring in is the opportunity for business to come into our town. I have no doubt that these courts, if we eventually put them in, will be used an awful lot, and our town will benefit a lot. As April Maynard said, it'll make our town more vibrant. But without, again, I think it's important that we have the momentum now. We have all these people sitting in front that want to help leverage our money, want to be a part of this collaboration. And I'm very supportive, as you know. I think we need to move forward now. We need to commit to it. And I'm fine with having the funding source brought back to us, as long as we can show tonight that we're committing to moving forward with this project. And as far as notice, that's very reasonable, and that's something that we do need to do. So with that, I would be willing to make a motion.
Wait a second, I'm confused. So we're gonna bring it back for the official approval after it's had the 30-day notice. That way those other members of the community have the chance to do comment, right? That's what we were thinking.
So just for clarification purposes, we'll have to have a motion, but the suggestion that I had made was that we ask staff to post the property for the prospective use and to notify the neighbors, you know, provide perhaps 30 days notice, and then to bring this back for final approval by the council, for formal approval by the city council. And that also at that, we would be asking staff to look at the appropriate funding mechanism for that, whether or not it be FTE savings or salary savings, or, you know, incorporated into CFP.
So just to be clear, then you would entertain a motion that we move forward. We commit to moving forward with this project, but we finalize it once we receive the notice and the funding.
What I would do is, because if we are asking to provide public comment, I think that in notification, we would really need to bring back formal approval of the project once that notification has occurred. Otherwise, there's no reason. If we were to approve the project today and then to notify people, you're pretty much making that notification null and void, because people aren't having the opportunity to voice any concern that they have. And really, it's just for transparency purposes. I am very supportive of this project. And I think that you've heard that every council member is. I think what we just want to do is do our due diligence as far as ensuring that the public, and I do appreciate Councilwoman Amara, you have raised this during your council reports. And so we have, as a council, been apprised of what's happening. And so we do appreciate that, but just really making sure that those that use the park that may not be paying attention to city council meetings, and then the neighbors know what is proposed for the use, and then to bring that back for formal approval. And then again, asking staff to identify the appropriate funding source. So.
Can we just second that?
That would be the motion. Madam City Manager, do I need to be any more clear with that, or because I bumbled all over the place?
No, I think we have it.
Oh,
Thank you.
I'll second your motion.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Isn't there any further discussion?
I have a question.
Sure, absolutely, under discussion.
So if we approve it, then does that mean that I would like it to be prioritized with everything else in the budget, because I really wouldn't want to tell our staff we can't afford the raise that they are due because of a pickleball court. So I just want to make sure it's included in the budget with everything else. So that way it gets approved and prioritized with all of the other things that we do, that we have that are outstanding for the city business. Is that not, would that not be part of the
So that
process?
would be part of staff's recommendation on the funding source. So the motion really tonight is that we direct staff to post in the park that a proposed use of this playground is for pickleball, and to let the neighbors the neighbors also know that there's a proposed use for pickleball.
Okay.
To provide them with 30-day notice, an opportunity to comment or provide any concerns or what have you to the city council. And then we would have another notice to city council meeting where we would be asked to formally approve the project.
Okay.
And at that time, well, we were going to say that this would be in
Well,
the budget. So
I'd like to discuss this a little more. So what I hear you saying is that we're committed to the project and the funding, but we just want to give notice. And and what I hear you saying, then if we'll hear notice, and if there's something that alarms us, then we could maybe not finalize the project. But
We would
it
approve
sounds
it.
like we all agree to the project and the funding. It's just that we want to give notice first.
well, I need to be very clear that the action tonight would not be to approve the project. I think that what you have heard is that we are supportive of the project, but I would not want to commit. Each member will have to vote when this comes back formally before us, after we've had the opportunity to notify. But I think what you've heard tonight is that we are certainly supportive, but we're not taking action to formally approve the project tonight. We're asking staff to notify the public via posting the property and the property owners, give them the opportunity to comment, and then to bring this back for formal approval. And then,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I hear
So
that.
it's- I just
I'm
wanna
just
make-
a little bit concerned
Mhm.
about the delay.
Mhm.
So if it's 30 days and then,
Mhm.
there's more delay, then it delays the whole project. And I think we heard from the other entities that
it
this
doesn't
could be
necessarily have to
problematic.
be 30 days. It can be whatever number of days that we wish. But we did hear from ARD that they were not opposed to the, when we talked about putting this in the budget for the next fiscal year, that there was no concern with that. So, and we have a head shaking going on over here. So, and Mr. Gary Bell. Mr.
Yes.
Gary Bell.
Yes.
Mr. Gary Bell, come on down. The price is right. What would you like to offer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to add on the process here. My understanding is that ARD will be going out to bid. So in terms of what's coming back to this council, there will be a budget decision for you all on where the funds are coming from and how those funds are allocated over to ARD. But there won't be a project, as I understand it, coming
Okay.
back to you for formal approval, like you might see for an RFP or a contract
Yes.
for other public works. So there'll be a budget discussion as part of the broader budget discussion, but probably not a separate line item for approval of this project like you'd see for others.
It's more, it's our approval to participate. It's our approval to fund. And that's really what I meant. But so thank you very much for the clarification, because it isn't our project. It's just the approval to provide funding and to be a partner in this.
Gary, I have a question on that. So if they're doing the project and they're in charge of the construction of it, do we lease the property to them to limit our liability? Because if we're not running the project, we're not going to have safety folks out there and doing all the work you would normally do to manage all the risks for the city. How's it work on projects that you share?
Yeah, so a lease of the property to ARD is probably not required under
Okay.
these facts. There's an existing agreement. We'd take a look at that and what authority they have to do that, but they're going to contract, as I understand it, with a private party to perform the work as any other public agency would. That contract will be, the city will be involved in that contract. And that contract will grant authority for the contractor to enter the property and perform the work.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that there's a piece there. Thank you.
Councilman Berland.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the clarifications. Again, it's kind of a unique process. So I just want to be clear, and Cal, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but just time wise, what I heard was that from Gary, ARD is actually the one going out to bid. And so for our own processes of noticing the public, A, but then B, determining where the money comes from, we have a month or two, and it's kind of a question and not to put you on the spot, but we have time to do those things. And then if there is some unique change, like restricting the hours, let's say, those are things that can be worked out. But tonight, what I assume based on even how it's agendized is ensuring that we are giving direction that we want to participate in this project, that we're giving direction, that we're going to confirm, we are going to appropriate the dollars. But some of these details, again, i.e. what the public nearby tells us and where that money comes from, are things that if it takes 30 days or 60 days, still fall in ARD's timeline. Is that, not to put you on the spot, but
No, the timeline I put on, that was put out was kind of a best case scenario. So people are asking, well, how soon could these be built? Well, best case scenario is this. Now, our only thing is once we get into probably November-ish, you're probably not gonna be able to do some of the paving work because it's going to get too cold. Just depends on the weather, of course. But so the idea being that we want to try to get it done by October, get the pavement down, especially with like this, the fine finish pavement. So that's the only thing, but I think that pushing it out to the 30 days it's not going to kill us. No, I mean, there's some wiggle room in here. This was just a best case scenario because people were asking, how quickly could this be done? Well, this is about as quick as it could be done. But if we get into too many delays, then we probably, we'll just have to hope for something
I
in
think-
November. Yeah.
Can I clarify what I think your question?
Me, but yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my question, I think I heard him say is, could you go, is this what you're asking? Can you go out to bid without our assurance right now?
Well, we wouldn't, best case scenario, we wouldn't, I mean, even as this, we weren't, well, I guess May is next month, isn't it? We were talking about going out to bid. So we would probably, we would not go out to bid without having your assurance. No, we would wait. I mean,
Because
we're not
we would
gonna,
we would be financing a third of the project.
right. So we would wait until we had the final approval from y'all.
But
And we
Madam Mayor, if I can, since I have the
Yes.
floor, I just want to clarify what I heard your motion to say a couple times, and then what I seconded, moved forward with the participation of this project, directed staff to find the money, but ensured that we gave time for the public to hear about the project and get their feedback. Based on that feedback, may tweak then potentially our final approval, meaning maybe the feedback gets us to that we only want the lights in the railhead example on the left side of the court. But those are things that obviously can be discussed, can be scoped out. The restriction of hours, any of that stuff, are all conditions. But tonight we're moving forward with our approval of the project. We're committing the dollars, though, needing to find where they specifically will come from. But the final approval comes after we hear from the public, that we then give the final authority to do it. Because I don't even think that it's agendized that we could to take action tonight anyway. So I kind of think we're in the best case scenario here of moving forward the project, commit the money, get the public's input, and then bring it back to a future council agenda in the next
Yeah,
30,
and I just want to
45
make
days.
very clear, though, is that we're not approving the project, that we're asking staff to notice the public and to find and to make a recommendation on the appropriate funding source. But certainly that we are voicing our support in that we are asking staff to do this. If we were not supportive of the project, then we wouldn't ask staff to go out and notify. So I just want to be very careful in our verbiage, because in the event that something were to happen, who knows, from public comment, if there was a council member that said they decided they were going to vote against it, there's not all this blowback saying, well, the council already approved it. So that's why you have public comment and you have the notification for the public and posting and so forth, so that we have the opportunity to gain any additional public comment, any concerns, and then we can really, if there are conditions that need to be, we'd like to recommend to ARD, we can certainly do that. But
Did I
think
hear you
that
say we
are-
can do it less than 30 days then? We can do.
I don't think that
Maybe
it has
can
to
it be
be
back,
30
come
days.
back in 2 weeks?
It could be, what I want to just do is ensure that staff have enough time to make the posting and then notify the neighbors. So that's why I just said 30 days total. So Jonathan, do you have
okay.
something? Looks like you're.
Standard notification would be 10 days and 500 feet.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be 30 days.
Okay, thank
So
you.
why don't
Thank
we
you.
Just
Then I'm good.
then 10, I'm fine with 10, but we wanted to post in the park for people. So let's just say 15 days is
15 's
less
good.
than 30.
Perfect.
Okay, so like I would just,
So just sorry, Madam, for my clarification, we're not approving the project tonight and we're not approving the funding. We will come back after those 15 days have been done. So that way there can be
We'll have
public comment
formal-
on both
we'll,
sides.
we'll be taking formal action at that
We'll take
time
public-
to approve the funding for the project.
Or to put it in, or to make it part of the.
It
budget
would be, yes,
But she
because,
already- But your motion gave direction to identify the funding.
yes, to identify
If
the
your point is that
appropriate.
You don't prioritize it, then that's your vote. But
Okay.
the motion was to direct staff to do it.
Because I can't vote to approve it knowing that we have all these big expenditures. Because though I really appreciate the interest and need in doing these things, I cannot put recreation above paying our staff or getting our requirements as a city done. So I need to make sure those all fit in together in the budget.
And I think that, again, for today's purposes, it's directing staff to do notification and directing staff to make a recommendation on the best funding source for this. And then the final vote will be at that next meeting, when after the 15 days that we do the notification. I do respect what you're saying. That it sounds like what you'd like to do is just to incorporate this in the budget process overall so that we can prioritize that. I do appreciate what you're saying. Yes,
Madam Mayor, we're really beating up $63,000. And I just don't think it's important to put onto the record that we are not prioritizing salaries or compensation to our employees. We are in negotiation, so there is nothing on the table. This, and I think that's back to city staff to come back to, but what I heard already talked about is utilizing dollars that were unspent and one-time costs from this fiscal year. This is not ongoing. And so the ability to negotiate still exists without $63,000.
I mean,
Every dollar adds up.
I
yeah.
agree.
if I had my, if I
But
had
you are,
my-
but you are putting
Wait a
the rest
minute,
of us in a position to say that
It's
we are
not.
prioritizing recreation, because that's what you said.
Yeah.
And I think that's an unfair comment, though, for the rest of us.
I think it should be prioritized with everything else.
Then,
That's my opinion.
Rachel, we'll
I
have
think
the
it should
same
come-
part of the conversation when you want to do the planning.
Okay.
dollars.
And I think that we should look at what's a priority for our city.
Council members, I appreciate that there's discussion here and there's different views. If I had my druthers, this is a one-time cost. And honestly, I could support just saying, use the salary savings, because those are salary savings. Those are monies that we saved by not hiring for whatever reason. It's a one-time cost.
And that was
And-
last year's budget.
Yes, that we already approved.
Yeah.
We approved positions that were just not filled for whatever reason. And so we have saved those monies. That savings is not ongoing. And so it would be inappropriate to use those kinds of savings for staffing ongoing efforts. You cannot do that for any kind of staff increases, which that is not on the agenda today. So I don't want to get into that, but you have to have sustainable funding.
But it
source.
could be used for the general plan, which is also a one-time cost, which we need to get done as
Absolutely.
well.
It could be, the monies could be utilized for any one-time, responsibly, in my personal opinion, for any one-time cost.
Yes.
Absolutely. It could be used to further Auburn is the endurance capital of the world, or put additional monies into the Carnegie or what have you. So it would be a one-time cost. So I think that's really what we're doing. And again, I would recommend to staff that they find that, utilize or make the recommendation to use that FTE. But I, in deference to my council member here on my right, who suggested that staff make the recommendation, but perhaps Councilman Berlant, it would be more responsible for us to go ahead and to say and direct staff to use the FTE savings, salary savings for this purpose. So it's clear that we're utilizing, that this council is looking at utilizing monies that it's saved from not, from those positions versus
Yeah.
taking monies away from another project,
Absolutely.
another CIP or what have you.
I think that's a good proposal.
If you were to amend your motion to say that, I would second it.
So what I would like to do is withdraw my emotion, I'd like to withdraw my emotion. I just got back from Hawaii, you guys. I'd like to withdraw my motion, hearing that Councilman Berlant is in concurrence with that recommendation. Hearing no objection, that shall be the order. No objection has been raised. The motion has been withdrawn. I'd like to now make the motion that we direct staff to notify, to post on the property of the proposed use and to notify the property owners 15 days notice to bring this back to the council with the recommendation that funding come from salary savings.
I'll second it.
I'm going to let our city manager write all that down and to make sure she's got it before we open up for discussion.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do have it. If I could make a comment in terms of budget process. So I appreciate all of the comments and the timing that we're under. I just want to clarify that budget discussions will be starting with next council meeting. So we will be in the budget process with recommendations coming forward. the 15 days is going to fall after the 24th, even if we could post tomorrow. So the reality is that this won't be really before you until the May 8th meeting. And will be part of the budget discussion at that point anyway.
Okay, perfect. All right. I'd like to open this up for discussion from my colleagues. Is there any discussion on the motion that has been seconded?
I think we've discussed this enough. Move on.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Holmes. All right, hearing that there is no further discussion on the item and that the city manager has the motion duly noted, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Amara,
Happily, yes.
Berlant,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Mayor Dowden Calvillo.
Aye. Let the record show the motion has been adopted. Council, we are going to break for 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I'm gonna have to get up early and just start.
Yeah, I get it. Is that from the library? Oh. Oh, that's from your wall. Oh. Oh, no, the library thing's tomorrow, right? This is showing the historical significance of the plan. The last time that was printed. This is current that we printed on that current paper? Oh. I know this is current, but when was the document printed?
All right, are we ready? Council members? We shall reconvene our April 10th meeting of the Auburn City Council. Thank you very much. Now we're going backwards to item number 10. This is discussion on planning and planning related documents that need to be updated or implemented and possible funding sources. I'm going to turn this over to staff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this report comes from not only myself, but from our Administrative Services Director, Nathan Bagwell, our Public Works Manager, Minjal Dean, and our Community and Economic Development Director, Jonathan Wright. So I will give the overall view at the outset. They may add some additional points as we go through the process. So this item was requested at the March 13th council meeting by Councilmember Riddell Harris with consensus by the council to bring forth to you a list of planning documents that need to either be updated or written so that you had an idea of where we are with those documents. So staff reviewed the plans that we have. They really fall into two main categories, planning and public works. A significant amount of the work that needs to be done on the documents is in the general plan. And I did give you quite a bit of background on general plan just to set the stage for the discussion and the importance of that document and how it interrelates with everything else really that the city does. So our general plan is 30 years old. It was last updated in 1993. There is no state mandate on when to update your general plans with the exception of the housing element and most recently the safety element. Those two elements have been updated here effective in 2021. So the remaining elements, which are 5, land use, circulation, noise, and open space, which are the mandated by law elements. And then this city actually has an economic and historic element as well, and those are elective elements. So as we looked at them, the city has historically not had significant enough revenue to pay for an entire general plan update at one time, and it has instead looked at doing elements individually. As I pointed out in the staff report, the challenge with that is when they're done individually, they're generally done by different either staff people or consultants, and they are not consistent. And you must have a consistent general plan document in order for it to be approved and to do the environmental review on it. So as we, as a staff, worked through this process, it became evident to us that really, if we can find the funds to do the entire document at one time, that makes most sense because it lays the groundwork for a lot of other things. And I will add as an aside, it's at this point, it is later on in the staff report. Your general plan document serves as the guide for the city. And there are many actions taken by the city, particularly the Planning Commission and other actions as well, that need to be made. A finding needs to be made that there's consistency with the general plan. Trying to do that on current day projects on a 30-year-old document can become very challenging. And it's my understanding from legal counsel that there have been some challenges here in the past in that regard. So another reason why it's important to have that document be updated. by law, there must be a municipal service review done for the city, an MSR. LAFCO does that. And under the new leadership at LAFCO, those are being either updated or written now. In order to do an MSR that is adequate for the city, you have to have a general plan that's really up to date. That MSR is, before I get to that, the general plan really has to be looked at as a blueprint for the city to understand and know where the city is going to go in the future. Times have changed since 30 years ago. Attitudes have likely changed from 30 years ago. Planning theory has changed from 30 years ago. That gets reflected in your updated general plan. I should also note that in those 30 years, there have been significant changes in law, both at the federal and the state level, which are not necessarily reflected in our document. Following let me get back to the MSR for just a moment. So we are kind of at the bottom of the list for LAFCO right now to do our MSR until we have our planning documents up to date. Another reason to do that. The sequential process following the adoption of the general plan addresses, and I think Jonathan has some things to show you. The next thing certainly would be the EIR that has to be done. Then comes the zoning code, zoning map that's now consistent with the certainly the general plan and the new zoning code. We don't have a digitized general plan map. What we have is, I think I've been told we have one map, which is very challenging to be able to do our business. And we need a digitized sphere of influence map. Those things would come after the general plan and EIR are done. The municipal service review, and that law went into effect in 2000. So here we are in 2023 and we still don't have one. That document considers potential changes to service delivery, government organization, the sphere of influence, and how the city is going to respond to those things happening either within our city or if we look to future annexations. How are we going to be able to provide services? Can we provide services? That document will look at that. I think that's the overview. I don't want to go into every detail that's in the staff report. That's the overview of that part. Moving on to that into the public works documents that are needed. We need a sewer master plan. The last one was done in 1991, 32-year-old document. We need a storm drainage master plan. We don't really have a clearly defined map of our drainage plan, our drainage system at this point. And we need city development standards that are updated. Those were updated in 2005, so they're not quite as old as the other documents, but they're still old and need to be looked at. So just a quick recap of, and I also included in here, which doesn't really fall in either planning or public works, but we also have a municipal code that needs to be updated. And that, as I understand, has been on the list for a very long time. But in talking with our city clerk, and she can certainly add more to this in a moment, we, and I pointed that out in here, we do not outsource the updates for the printing, publishing of the document. We do that internally, which does save some money, a significant amount of money, actually. The staff that would be most directly involved in that updating process would be our legal counsel and our clerk. Other staff certainly on specific parts would be involved, but we wouldn't necessarily have a consulting firm working on that. So the recommendation is to potentially augment some monies that are already available. It's about $750,000 with ARPA monies to be able to do the general plan update at one time. Direct staff to come back, including that certainly in the budget, and to address the other plans that need to be updated outside of the general plan with a policy statement essentially in the budget of how we are going to address funding. It gives us a bit of time to look at that, determine if there is other funding available within the budget now, within our resources now. If the direction is to not do that, you had recently a report before you from our contract engineer and Fair and Peers consulting firm on the circulation element. I've noted in the staff report to do the circulation element without doing the land use element is really problematic in my mind. They really go hand in hand. And so my recommendation would be that if the direction is to not pursue doing the general plan as a one document update, that we already are proceeding with the circulation element, that we do include with that the land use element. The other options are, of course, to continue to the process that we've been using to update things individually, which my recommendation is to not do that for the reasons I already stated, or just to take this information and no action be taken, which I think is probably not the most prudent way. And I don't think that would be the direction that you would take, but it is an alternative. I think at this point, I would ask our staff to provide any additional comments that they may have that I did not cover. Again, I don't want to go through every detail that's in the staff report. It's lengthy, but that's the overview and the recommendation.
Maybe what I'll do is, I know we've all had an opportunity to review the information at this point, is ask if there are questions of the council, and then, so, and if there's additional additional information needed, we can do that.
Okay.
And I just really quickly wanted to ask with regards to the $750,000 that you identified in the staff report is already being available. Is that $750,000? Where did that come from?
I would ask Nathan to address that, please.
I mean, I know that you're recommending that we potentially use another 350,000, which is the 300 from broadband, and 75,000 from the police station renovation that was going to be funded under ARPA, but where's that 750,000 coming from?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, Nathan Bagwell, I serve as your Director of Administrative Services. That $750,000 is already programmed in the budget, 250 this year and 500,000 next year from ARPA funds for planning projects.
Okay, so we as a council already determined that in our 2-year budget. I just
Correct.
want to make sure that was clear. I know we've been talking about how our ARPA monies are being expended. So it sounds like we've appropriated $500,000 next year and 250 this year is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'm going to open it up. I'll have other questions, but I just wanted to get that right off the bat.
Thank you.
I'll start with Councilman Holmes today. Councilman Holmes, do you have any questions on the staff report?
Well, yes, I do. And that is on the she mentioned the storm drainage system. And some of you are aware that we had worked for a number of years to get the Army Corps of Engineers to do a electric street storm water diversion plan that would divert stormwater from the upper area up near Alta Vista in that area on the eastern side of the railroad tracks, and divert that water into the American River Canyon. That was a potential Army Corps of Engineer project that was originally estimated at about $2 million. And we've had various discussions of that. I think it went back into the 1990s was probably started, they started taking a look at that. And we had some discussions with the Army Corps of Engineers. The last discussion I had was with the Army Corps of Engineers in Washington, DC. And they suggested that we write a letter with all the details to the Army Corps of Engineers office in Sacramento. Our previous city manager elected not to pursue that. But since we don't know all the details of, some of our stormwater drainage system is over 100 years old, that and a lot of it has collapsed over the years. I'm just wondering whether we want to pursue going again for the Army Corps of Engineers to do that project.
Thank you very much, Councilman Holmes. And I think that that's something that if we were to do a storm drainage plan, that would have to be addressed in there. Just really quickly, Menjol, I don't believe that project is in the CIP anymore, correct? The Electric Street Diversion, Stormwater Diversion Project?
It is currently not in the current
Yeah,
CIP program.
And I believe it has been out for a number of years. And I know Councilman Holmes and I have talked about this. We used to have substantial flooding in Old Town. And so diverting the stormwater from Electric Street was one way to help alleviate that. But with the daylighting of Auburn Ravine, we haven't been pursuing that particular project. And so, but certainly to your point that if we were to do a stormwater, as part of this, there's the recommendation that we look at the stormwater drainage as a plan. The storm drainage master plan is what staff is recommending that we develop. If staff felt that it was prudent to bring that up, that would be certainly something to include there. But right now, that is not an active project before the council. So that's why we haven't been moving forward with recommendations or anything to BOR. But it's something that could be studied if staff felt that it was prudent. Do you have any other questions?
Well, I don't think it was ever formally dropped as a potential project.
If I can speak
Angel, please.
just briefly to this, that would be one aspect of the storm drain master plan that would be looked at. There's many other areas of the city that needs this information updated. And certainly if we were to undertake this endeavor, that would be an aspect that would be included in that.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions on this item?
No.
Thank you very much, Councilman. I'm going to go ahead and Councilwoman Riddell Harris, do you have any questions?
Sure. Just really quick, Gary. I know we don't have any legal obligation to update the general plan on a specific time frame, but what are the negative consequences of not having an updated general plan? And how you talked about how that things don't work quite well together when something is 30 years old and things like that. So I was just curious if you could go over that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm happy to go into more detail. Is this on?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay,
Thanks
great.
for checking.
All of the city's planning decisions have to be consistent with the general plan, and that includes the applications that are received by the planning department, considered by the planning commission, and then sometimes here before the city council. There are other pieces of what the city does, including your CIP projects, that also have to be consistent with your general plan, and there's a consistency finding that needs to be made for that. More recently, the state legislature has passed a series of housing laws to streamline certain housing and to remove local control of the decision-making process regarding qualified housing projects, most notably under SB 330 and also the Housing Accountability Act. Those laws now say that if your zoning code is inconsistent with your general plan, you must follow your general plan. And so as the zoning code has changed in the last 30 years, but the general plan has not followed, there are circumstances and times where making consistency findings is difficult. And also when the general plan might control over the zoning code, even when you've made a specific determination in your zoning code as to that use or in that particular zone. And so those are the ways that the general plan can play into specific projects generally, and why updating it, at least for consistency and understanding how it affects those planning projects, is something that staff's recommending.
And you work with a lot of cities. Normally cities update theirs between 10 and 15 years. Is that around the time frame?
That's right. Yeah. So the Governor's Office of Planning and Research recommends 10 years, and most cities are at a 15-year or a 20-year cycle for updating. I think that's common.
Okay. Yeah, I looked at our old general plan and it said its lifespan was 20 years. So that I think we're pretty consistent with that.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not right now.
Thank you. Councilwoman Amara.
Thank you. Yes, so we already put in 500,000 for the circulation study, right? And that will require more as well. Is that right?
If the direction from council this evening is to move forward to do the whole general plan, then we would have to, the staff would have to determine how best to bring in the circulation element into that process, since we have a contract for that already with the allocation of funds.
Okay, so we have a contract to complete a circulation plan?
It's
Is what you're saying?
No, we have, and actually, let me take that back. The presentation was, here's what has to be done. We are now in the process of identifying the funding to do that. So there's, and the estimate was around $500,000. We don't have $500,000 allocated. Is that correct? Nathan?
We did.
Oh, they are. Correct. We did not allocate $500,000, correct?
It's not specific to that one project.
Right.
General.
It's right.
Oh, I
Or
see.
the general
Right.
plan.
Okay.
It's just for.
Well, how much
planning
was
plan.
spent on the circulation so far? Do we know?
Do you have that number? We'll have to bring that number back.
Okay, but what we've done so far wouldn't necessarily be lost. We'll be utilizing.
No, it wouldn't be lost.
Okay. And then my question was the 750. So that we made that decision last year to put what, 250 from the first year and then another 500 for the update of the general plan
That's
from ARPA funds. Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay.
That was in the approved budget? I don't remember having
I
a
don't
big
either. I was
discussion
gonna ask
about
the
it.
same question. And
And
I'm
we-
looking right now. I can't find
We can't find.
next fiscal year. And so maybe you could just, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
hijack, but point out to us where we allotted the second year's worth of ARPA dollars.
Just so we have a good accounting, because I don't remember having that discussion.
Sure, no problem. So what we did in the budget document is we actually speak specific to the current fiscal year. Where we get into the exacts of the ARPA allocation for next year would be in the capital improvement plan, which, as I understand, is not online as part of our budget. So I can get you that document, but that is where it is spelled out specifically, that additional 500,000 for next year.
And the CIP that the council approved.
Correct.
Okay, so, and I'm just trying to get an understanding. When you update the general plan, you're talking about every single element, or do we pick and choose?
No, every
So you're-
element.
So you're talking, what we are talking about then would be, all these that you list. So it'd be land use, which we have, not completed. Land, okay, circulation, which we've kind of preliminary started. Economic development is mandated, noise, open space, and then are you also proposing the two electives?
Yes.
Okay. And then also zoning map. Is this correct? Okay. Digitize those, master plan, storm drain. Now these zoning, that all is the zoning. If you update the zoning code, does that include the zoning map and a digitized map and sphere of influence, or is that All those are all separate.
They would be, those would come after the zoning code update. And the zoning
I
code
see.
would
This
come
is
after
order.
the general
This is the
plan.
order.
Yes.
Okay. And sewer. And so what an option is to, and then you're saying then the next in line would be the sewer master plan, drainage, city development, and the municipal code. That's the complete general plan that needs to be updated, one option for us to do is do the whole thing.
Yes.
And you get one, and so we would contract with one company to do the whole thing, and they would probably go out to do different pieces, right? I would assume. I don't.
It
they're not-
depends upon the consulting firm that you get. I have worked with firms that they have all the staff within their company. They do everything. Others may sub part of that
So,
process.
but they're like the general contractor and then they
Yeah.
get everything together. Okay, okay. But, and then I'm just trying to understand, then we add, or the staff report talks about the, back here. So not included then is the storm drainage master plan and the city development standards?
You're talking in the amount that we're recommending be budgeted?
Yes.
So that amount is only for the general plan. And as indicated in the staff report, it does not include the EIR and these other documents. The direction that we're asking for from council is to prioritize those within our internal planning process, our budget process, to determine if we have sufficient funds to fund any of these.
Okay.
And if not, how will we address that? One way to do that is to budget an amount annually into a reserve account to have enough to do them.
Okay. Oh, I got it. Okay. Then my other question is, it's hard. So what I gleaned from the staff report is that it's about over 2 million maybe, not maybe 2.5 to do the whole thing.
General plan.
Yes.
So my experience has been for a city this size, it's about $1.5 million to $2 million. It can go up, and the time frame is generally a year and a half to 2 years. That both the cost and the time frame can increase
Sure.
dependent upon public participation and issues that are raised in the process.
So the only trouble I'm having is I don't want to go, item by item, but it's hard to make a decision. And what I hear you saying then is the next best thing is to do the land use and circulation.
Yes.
And would that, how much would land use and circulation be? Just those pieces?
You probably could do those within the 750,000 that's been identified. But we would have to go through the RFP or RFQ process to really nail down that number. But I would estimate that you probably could
Okay,
do that.
yeah, just to get an idea.
Mhm.
Okay, and then if we do the whole thing, I see the benefit. You nicely laid that out. But my question is, if you do just the land use and circulation, which would be the next one alternative, does that help us with the MSR? Would that catapult that process?
That's
perhaps?
a really good question. It could, because much of what's looked at in that MSR is ability to provide services, which you will know what your level of development may be through your land use designations.
Mhm.
So that would give certainly a baseline to look at that. It would be able to look at the potential of annexations and how they might coordinate with the city boundaries now and what the current land use is.
Mhm.
Those types of things. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And of course, we've done our housing and safety.
Yes. So those are not included in here. Housing won't be due until 2029. And I'm not sure, I think the safety element was a 5-year update, if I remember correctly. So
Okay.
that would be in 2026.
In any case, we're okay there. for now.
We're okay with those two right
Um,
now.
And then What about the zoning? Do you know how much that is? And that seems kind of important to do.
You know, I don't know what current costs may be. I've seen them done for between 80,000 and 250,000. It depends.
Just an idea there. Okay. And is the sewer project, the sewer update, would that be funded through our sewer fund? I know we have a large sewer fund.
The storm drainage
This-
master plan, is that what you're referring to?
The
Or
sewer, the
sewer master
sewer
plan.
master
Sewer
plan.
Sewer master plan.
Yes, I, without having had that discussion internally, I do believe, and not knowing how that fee, what that fee was calculated on. If the calculation included doing a master plan, then yes, you could use those funds.
Okay, but we don't know that for sure.
Right.
Okay. Okay, well then those are, one other question, then Gary. I got from you what's important. How about from you? Could you add to that, or if you want, is zoning important to do right away?
Yeah, I'll just add on the zoning piece of this that the state planning and land use law that applies to all cities and counties requires that the zoning code be updated within a reasonable amount of time after you update specific provisions of your general plan that affect your zoning code. So the thing like the land use and then also your housing element, you've already updated, but you're in the middle of, but will relate to the land use element. So there will be some necessary amendments to the zoning code coming out of this process regardless, because we'll have to make a determination on whether or not any of the current zoning code provisions conflict with what's been adopted once you adopt those elements of the general plan. And that could be a focused amendment to the zoning code to say, here are the things that need to be done, or it could be a broader overhaul of the zoning code to implement some other policies were adopted by the council. It could go either way.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's all I.
Thank you. Councilman Berland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I got a lot of my questions already answered, but I have two follow-ups. And if this is an easy one, then I apologize, but help me understand the form-based code process that we're going through. How does that relate or connect to the zoning code as it relates to this general plan list that you've given us? Are they the same thing or are they different?
They're different, and Jonathan can expound upon this. So when I heard that we were doing a form-based code, my antenna kind of went up a bit, because normally in my experience, you would do that after your general plan is done and the EIR. However, in my discussion with Jonathan, I also had the conversation with Gary, and we agreed that maybe this is out of order. However, conversation with Jonathan indicated that we're doing a form-based code essentially on a specific plan area, which I'm more comfortable with that since it's a very well-identified area. So, but generally you would do it after your general plan update.
So knowing that horse is already out of the gate, is your opinion that when we go to this zoning code update, that form-based code work for that small no, I shouldn't say small, but that, defined area of our business districts can just be folded into, or, how would the fact that we're going to come out, I assume, approving a form-based code for that area, how does that conflict or how does that help?
So I will give an answer, and then I'll have Jonathan expand upon it. So you do the general plan update, and you have your policies stated in that document. Those policies then become the basis for the new zoning code, which you would do, as I indicated, sequentially. Because we're doing the form-based code, that's going to have to be integrated into both of those documents. And that's going to have to be made very clear in the RFP or the RFQ. You want to add to that?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Jonathan Wright, Community and Economic Development Director. So this has already gone through an extensive public process. So a lot of the information we're gathering right now can speak to the general plan, especially in the land use element, because that's exactly the process we're going to embark on once again when we go through this next phase. The form-based code becomes an overlay zone within that area. So it's kind of a standalone document. You get into that that form-based code section of the map, which was going to look way better than this one. And then you go to the book and you go to the overlay zone, you look at specifically what the parameters are there. It's going to have its own updated land usage ordinance that goes with it. So that section, that little section of town that we were able to fund through multiple grants, that section should be good to go. We consulted with RGS, which is our land use team on it. They've already looked at our EIR, they've looked at our general plan, and they can get that to fit in there. Granted, if we had the money starting out 2 years ago when we embarked on this process, because we didn't know the ARPA or we didn't have it programmed, we may have done the timing a little bit differently, prioritization wise. But at the time, this is the amount of money we had, and this is the project that we came up with to try to fix the conditions that we have in the old town and downtown area. And a lot of that has to do specific to housing, because our housing element update established the fact that we need to have a certain amount of housing. And our commercial core area, which, by the way,
Don't rip it. There's not.
I know.
It was such a good cause tonight that I took it off the wall because it has to be seen. This is actually, okay. Here's our general plan. And within the general plan, there is a general plan map that nobody can read. So at one point, a planner actually took it upon themselves to blow it up and use Sharpie to color it in so that we can actually see what's going on this map. Now,
Sharpie.
oh yeah, it's highlighter. Look at
Oh, yeah, I see that. Oh.
this is not a printed map. This is a handmade map, probably with a projector projecting onto the wall that was then drawn. This is what we make decisions off of, folks. Seriously. So this includes our land, our city limits, all the way up to where
Dry Creek.
Yeah, all the way up to wherever this is a sphere of influence as well.
Dry Creek.
Dry Creek, all the way up past the airport. Now, I'd like to draw your attention real quick to an agency that really is working diligently to update themselves and do a great job with their land use strategy. It just happens to be surrounding us. So this is the county of Placer's zoning code for that area. You know, it's around it. They're doing a great job of programming
Our sphere of
our sphere of influence. Great job. So you hired me as the community development director and as economic development. These things go really hand in hand. There's a couple different strategies. One is with the form-based code, trying to do infill, because we need to really look internally, because you can see we are an island, folks. We might as well be out in the Pacific. So the next thing is actually looking at what successful strategies look like with other communities, and that's annexation and how we bring those properties in. Not just bring them in, but how we do it intelligently. We use our sphere of influence, which is planned because you have an existing conditions report that's done through your land use element that tells you the things that you need to have. Then you look at how you grow those outside your city limit. That's economic development too. So when we talk about a strategy for the future and figuring out how we fund potential deficits, it's through this type of plan. Now it's hugely expensive. That's why you have little communities like ours that often get to this point. And luckily right now there is the ability with dollars we didn't know were coming into the general fund a couple of years ago to maybe do what we would need to do to if anything else, start this project. I know we've already designated some funds, but I'm going to tell you $750,000 is not going to get you that far in this process. And every element, as identified in that staff report, tiers off the other one. So when you're looking at circulation, that's great. You're looking at the road system in there, but that land use plan, your densities, everything that has never been updated or hasn't been updated in 30 years, those things you then have to go back to later on when you update your land use code. So it becomes this chicken egg and trying to figure out how we actually do this in incremental steps. My first thing would be land use. I mean, that's the obvious one, because then a lot of those things come off the land use. But that only gets us so far. And then of course the zoning code was the next phase, because then you look at our zoning code is 1973. It's actually older than our general plan. And of course, we've all heard that if you try to have a fitness studio in the endurance capital, you get the full treatment here. And it would be nice to have those contemporary things folded into there. So general plan update, looking at the zoning code. I'm going to tell you though, this is the existing conditions surrounding our city, but this is the Auburn Bowman plan area for the county. They're programming this right now. This is the Auburn Bowman plan update area that they're going to be working on. They are working on to, and you've heard this from the former city manager, build a city with more housing than we have against our border. So where does that leave us as far as an annexation strategy? I don't know, because we have no information on how we're actually going to go forward. And in talking to LAFCO, they said that's why we're last on the MSR list, because we don't have our stuff in a row to be able to move forward. They said point blank at the table, we are not going to support annexation for Auburn until we get some elements, pieces done that can make it so they can do that. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump on the city manager.
I know, but thank you for answering my question about the form-based code. But I think that the rest of that was educational, I would have to say, for all of us. And probably just reassures why we need to do this. But you said something, and I'll tag back to it, but I want to talk about the funding of how do we do this. So in going through real quick, and I just want for the group, I did verify that in our approved budget, page 55, should you want to go find it, they're not numbered. No pages are numbered, which is beautiful in a 150-page document. But if you go to page 55, it does have the ARPA dollars for this fiscal year and next fiscal year. Interestingly enough, I don't remember ever having that deeper conversation, but let's put that aside. What I'm taking away from your recommendation is that we take the $250,000 that's programmed for this fiscal year, the $500,000 that is in the document for next fiscal year, reallocate $375,000 from both 2 years worth of broadband and I think 1 year worth of police department facility upgrades. That gets us, as your staff report says, to $1.1-ish million. Just assuming you think we need to do two, where do you recommend us pull the other 900,000? And what I heard Jonathan say, but I got lost a little bit, not based on what you said, but in going back to our budget summary that we just got from Nathan, if I'm not mistaken, the increased revenue, the $1.5 million or so of increased revenue, we adjusted that with nearly the same for expenditures. So where are you thinking of pulling that additional $900,000 or so? Because I wouldn't connect back to what, Jonathan, you made a side comment saying, we have this one-time funds this year. And I was just curious, where are those one-time funds?
So the city has a fairly significant fund balance, general fund balance that's not allocated to anything. And you've heard me say before that I will be recommending with Nathan in the budget process year, establishing some financial management policies that will allocate those funds out. So there could certainly be a recommendation coming from us, and we're not that far into our discussions yet, but there certainly could be a recommendation coming from us that some of those funds be allocated to this process.
So just to be clear, some of our general fund reserves.
Correct.
Right now, I'd note just from the presentation Nathan gave that we're at about 46% in those reserves. And so your thought would be to bring that down a bit.
A bit, yes.
Okay. I think that is the end of my questions. Thank you for the education. I did actually learn a lot from your detailed document. I really enjoyed the show too. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I really appreciate your enthusiasm because Joan, you did a really good job. It's a tad boring.
What?
I meant no disrespect, but the map and the show.
The lively presentation.
Between the two of you made it all worthwhile.
There you go. All right, thank you very much, Councilman Berlant. Just really quickly, just to kind of follow up on Councilman Berlant's comment. Again, we have allocated $750,000. You're looking at this total cost at $1.5 million to $2 million. So that's really the big issue is coming up with that extra money, but the difference between the 750 plus the plus $375,000 to come up with the extra funds. Now that doesn't include the EIR. So what are we thinking on the cost of an EIR for the general plan? Do we have any idea what that would be?
It can be in the same range. It depends upon um, how detailed the public comments are, particularly in land use. And it's an expensive proposition. There's no way around that. But I would like to say something in terms of the $1.5 to $2 million. Jonathan raised a good point in terms of what we are gaining now through the form-based code. There is information there that certainly will be of benefit in that process, which could reduce that cost somewhat. I can't sit here and tell you how much, but certainly it will add, it adds value to doing that project.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And my questions, I mean, we've had several council members ask questions, and so I don't really have any additional questions. Reading through the documentation, really, there's just a lot of discussion that has to be had here. Your recommendation, staff's recommendation, both community development, public works, and city manager's office, and our administrative services director are recommending that we move forward with the entire general plan update, which includes the required elements in addition to the economic and historic. Could you just speak a little bit to the difference between the economic development element and the economic elective element? What is the difference between those? Because we show here planning documents that need to be added or updated. We say economic development, which is mandated, but then there's the economic elective.
Do you have an answer for this general fund?
I don't have the specific difference between it. I think those might be referring to the same thing though.
Yeah, because we do have to have an economic development element, but I just didn't know what the elective one. So maybe that one can be removed. I wasn't aware. The historic the historic element, I understand. It was just that economic. So it'd be good just if you could follow up and let us know, because I don't.
I will do that. I pulled that off of our website. I will double check that.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't know what the difference was on that. And then afterwards, once the general plan, if it was the council's position, then we would need to move forward, would be the recommendation that we move forward with the sewer master plan, the storm drainage master plan, and the city development standards plan. And as I don't remember which council member pointed out, but it might have been Berlant, but I can't remember at this point, that there may be the possibility of using sewer enterprise funds for the sewer master plan and the storm drainage plan as well. Correct? Was that you? Okay, Councilwoman Amara, thank you.
Can storm drain be covered by sewer?
Well, the storm water goes to the wastewater treatment plant, except for that.
I just wasn't
diverted.
sure if they
So-
connected that way.
The sewer master plan would only be covered by the sewer impact
So you
fees.
there's no way we could put storm drainage in there?
The only way that you can normally do that is if there's a nexus between the two, if one interferes with the other while you're doing it. So you can use funds to do it that way, but
Okay, so if we did them consecutively, we might be able to. So that would make sense. I mean, to me that, yes, exactly. There's a pipe.
And if I could just elaborate slightly, that has to have been included in the fee calculation to be able to use those funds for that.
I see. Okay, so, and it may not have been, we'd have to amend that then. It's likely
Correct.
not. Okay.
And if I could add something here, which is not part of the discussion tonight, but it will be part of the discussion, I think, on the next agenda, that is AB 1600 fees. We don't have AB 1600 fees. All of these things could be funded through that process. And so we are recommending when we bring forth the RFP for doing fees, that we also identify what AB 1600 fees are appropriate for this city to be put in place potentially.
That's probably why we have not updated our general plan, because we just don't have an identified funding source. And I know that staff is also recommending that we develop a policy or a position that would fund the upgrades to the general plan each year. You put monies aside so that when we have to update it, we don't find ourselves in this predicament again, because I sure hope we don't have ARPA monies again. I don't want to go through COVID. So you know, I know there's not a lot of grants available for these kinds of things, unfortunately, because every city has to go forward. Do you want that? I don't know. No, I want to go through it again. In any event, now see, you got me off my thought. I think it's all right. I get it. All right, well. Yes, I was just, and now I just totally lost what I was gonna say, but, or my question on that. Yeah, was just that we make a point we make a point to set aside funds in each budget cycle to fund future updates. So that's part of that discussion as well. Okay, so, all right, well, that really answers my questions at this point. I do appreciate the thought about AB 1600 fees, and I know that we haven't done that. Of course, there is a proposal by the Business Roundtable that will be on the ballot in 2024 that addresses AB 1600 and other fees. So we have to keep, sight of that as well. Okay. Councilwoman Mara, did you have another question?
Yeah, I just want some clarification. I'm having trouble wrapping my head around this big sum of money and this project. So I guess my question is, I find it hard to believe that a project, it's so vague. So you get a company, what worries me is you said 2 years. So if you get do you put it out for RFP and then you have a number, a definitive number, or does it keep changing as they go along?
You mean the budget number?
Yes.
So that you get
For the
that question
company that's
answered in
doing-
the
No,
proposal
for the
back.
company that's doing the project.
Right. So you solicit the proposals.
Yeah.
You get them back, and part of that process is they define the budget to do the project.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's
Councilwoman Riddell Harris has another question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is probably Joan and maybe Jonathan too. What is the cost of not upgrading? Like what are we losing out on if we choose not to do the general plan or not to do all of the general plan? What could be the negative impacts to us by like staff time? Because we have to figure out things like the highlighter map or, new revenue sources that we're missing out on, grants, things like that you guys talked about.
Go ahead.
Target, Home Depot, all those things that are in our sphere of influence that we could have potentially taken advantage of those types of developments. So it absolutely impacts our fiscal financial sustainability for the future. So we can go to this map and try to do our infill or come up with form-based code things to try to, finesse into certain areas, higher densities and better strategies for commercial development. But ultimately, again, looking at annexation and looking at a broader spectrum of infill and different types of uses within the city limits will yield much higher economic dividends than by just doing nothing at all.
It's more difficult for developers and people trying to do infill and things if we don't have updated documents, correct?
Much, especially if you want to do housing in a commercial area where, it's allowed many places, but you can't do it in the city of Auburn, except for when we get done with the form-based code within our little area there.
Do developers and companies look and see that we have like a 30-year-old plan and maybe pass us by because we don't seem like we have our stuff together?
Absolutely. Most people have their documents online. It's very user-friendly. They can go in and actually look at the population projections, look at all the economic projections. They can look at housing inventories. They can look at all the information that we don't have available, and they can make decisions that way.
So we're essentially allowing others to eat our lunch, and we're not even doing a great job within our
We've
current.
been doing it for a while.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just augment that in addition to those things, and Jonathan is absolutely correct, developers do look at your general plan. I was in a city where the general plan was old. There were about 5 developers that wanted to do major projects. They were not going to move forward with them with that general plan. They actually funded a tremendous amount of that process so they could do development. So it is really a critical document that they look at. The other component of what does it cost us? It costs us potential legal fees in being able to work through consistency questions. I can imagine that there could be litigation on some things if we don't address the consistency question upfront adequately. And certainly our legal counsel, I'm sure, would do that, but it doesn't take away the potential of having those types of costs come before you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I'm just trying to do some budget numbers. So based on the $750,000 that we've already approved, if we were to reallocate the 375,000 in ARPA, then we would need an additional $350,000 to $850,000, correct, for the general plan to get, if it was between 1.5 and 2 million. Am I doing my math correct? Well, yeah, that's what you're saying at this point. So it would be anywhere between 350,000 to 850,000. And then an additional 1.5 to 2 million for the EIR.
I'm putting that out as a ballpark number.
Yeah, just ball,
Uh,
and I'm not
yeah.
asking, I'm just so we can kind of,
Yeah.
and I do respect that, these are huge numbers. This is something that the city council has been talking about for decades. I remember we talked about this during my first tenure on the council, which began back in 1998. And our general plan wasn't quite as old then, but still it was elderly, getting elderly every year. And, Social Security, maybe. So, I appreciate that these are huge numbers. I think that we are in a unique position because we do have some of these ARPA monies that are available that were not earmarked for other very important causes. It does concern me what's happening. We don't have it. I liken it, I guess, to the fact that, the county is able to use the latest and greatest tech for their planning purposes. And the city of Auburn is using what are the math, what is it called? Those things with the
Abacus.
Abacus. We are using an abacus. That's really what it is when we're trying to come up with our planning because everything is so old. And that does concern me that we are not able to, I'm just using it as an example. They're using, latest and greatest artificial intelligence to figure out their planning. And we're using the abacus. And we're not able to compete. And, we continue to try to put these Band-Aids on it, the form-based code. While I think it's obviously a great project, we're moving forward with it, but it's kind of a Band-Aid because we could not afford to do the update for our circulation and our land use elements. So we tackled just a little tiny piece of our city and tried to address it there. But we really do need to look at this from a comprehensive planning perspective. Transportation dollars are dependent on our circulation element. I met with SACOG to talk about what were our priorities for transportation. And when I met with staff, it was really transportation planning. That is the most, that's really what we need help with. And the problem is there's not a lot of funding out there for these kinds of things. And so it really comes again, and that's why we haven't done it. Right? Because we have to take from within, and it's very difficult to redirect monies, to raise fees and do these kinds of things to make these efforts. Again, we have an opportunity. We have a unique opportunity. I would support moving that $375,000 in ARPA funding for our planning purposes and, asking staff to come up with a recommendation to raise the additional between $350,000 and $850,000. I mean, we talked about AB 1600 fees. We talked about, lots of different things, but to have more concrete recommendations on how to get there. I think this has again provided us with a lot of great information and painted the picture. And our Sharpie map over here, we don't even have a digitized map. Been asking for digitized maps for 20 years myself when I first got on the city council. Those are my thoughts on that. I do think that this is something that we need to do. It's not, these planning documents are not sexy and exciting, except when Jonathan gets excited about it. I mean, he did a great job, but they are fundamental documents that the city needs in order to move forward with development or preservation and ensuring that our city and that we have circulation and that we can promote our bike paths and our pedestrian pathways and our stations for EV chargers and moving forward in that direction too. And cars are important. People are going to stay in their cars. I'm in my car. So, again, I think it's important. And I think that we need to move forward with this. It's difficult, but we do have some funding available. And I think we need to take advantage of that. Additional comments?
I have some.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm sure you all have.
Yeah, I would agree with the mayor about that we need to move forward. I would say that we could use the unassigned fund balance. It looks like about $3.5 million is unassigned right now. I know that's a savings, but we already have there's already a fund for economic uncertainty as a reserve. So we do have that already allocated. And I would argue that the $3.5 million is really money that we didn't spend on a previous general plan that we probably should have done. So it's really just a savings account for our general plan. It looks like our last general plan had a lifespan of 20 years is what it said in the document. I was looking it over, and it's had some assumptions about the Auburn Dam in it, which I thought were interesting, and that we would already have annexed all of North Auburn and Bowman and things by now. So yeah, I think there's definitely some updating that needs to happen in order to make our staff efficient. And that was one of the things in our strategic plan, is that we want to have an efficient government. And so we need to make sure that we're giving the proper tools to our staff for them to be able to do their job, and also fulfilling one of the main things the city is supposed to do, which is have all the planning documents in order so we can continue to move forward as a city.
We need to be able to compete. I think that's really,
We need new revenue sources.
got to compete, and we're not.
I agree with Councilwoman Rachel Harris. We need new revenue sources. And I honestly, I hate to be the person who's not quite as enthusiastic. I'm very enthusiastic. It's something we need to do, and I'd love to do it, just like I'd love to build a house in Lake Tahoe. But instead of a mansion in Lake Tahoe, I think I'll settle for a little house, and then I can work from there. And that's probably a bad analogy, because we do need to identify financial sources before we endeavor into this gigantic leap. The other part of it is there's two pieces. We doing a plan, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I think we should definitely do as much as we possibly can, but within reason. I think we have to take time. We will have a new city manager. I think it takes time for us to again prioritize, because we can have all the plans we want, but if we don't have the financial resources, because Nella Oil is going to be depleted as sunset at some point. And if we deplete our reserves and we can't implement from this plan, then we're in it's not serving our community. I think we do need to have a discussion and use some of our money to implement what we do have, and like the form-based code, like there's other opportunities. So I guess what I'm saying is I certainly support the land use, the circulation, those go together. I think zoning's important. And if there's some other ways to prioritize that, I think it's unrealistic, but I could be naive. Even 2 million, I think it might be more than that. And then we're still scrambling. But maybe if I had more of a definitive idea, but I guess you can't go out for RFP if you don't have show the funding. Is that correct?
No.
You can ask them. You can put out an RFQ that basically says, tell us what you would charge us to do each element, and then
And
the
how long it
council
would
could
take.
decide.
Well, I'd be willing to do the RFQ.
Yeah.
But I need more information before I could commit
So we
to
can go out
full
for,
project.
so we can go out for an RFP, and then they bring it back to us, and we wouldn't agree to spend the money until we have that proposal back to us and we say we want to spend it for that amount of money.
Yeah, I understand that,
Yeah.
but it sounds like we're leaping forward and committing almost 2 million tonight.
We could also
No.
we could also do an RFP that has
Okay, I'm-
each of the elements priced out, and we could pick and choose. If we don't have the full funding, we could choose to do 3 of the elements versus all 5.
Well, then that's clear. Thank you. That clarifies it. I'd be very happy.
So then we
with
could
that.
kind of know where our budget kind of fits and
Yeah.
all that. Am I wrong? Sorry, I just speak for you normally.
No, no, you're not wrong. And maybe I wasn't clear enough in terms of doing the RFP or the RFQ. That does give you then what the amount is going to be, and then staff will come back and tell you what the information is that was gleaned through those proposals. And then you would have a definitive number
Okay,
to make it.
that makes more sense.
But I'm saying that you need to, I think, consider setting aside those funds so that when you get that information back, you're ready to go.
On some
Okay.
or all.
On
Some are
some or all.
Okay.
Mhm.
And we would do that through the budget process, that setting aside of funds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we could set aside the $375,000. That's the ARPA money from broadband and then the 75,000 from the police department. Set that aside. We could do that.
So I'm not
budget.
asking you to make a determination
Okay.
on exactly where that's coming from in those
Yeah.
those line items in the current ARPA allocations.
Okay.
But to give us the direction to come back to you when we come back with the budget and we have then a definitive ARPA budget based upon direction that we've been given.
Because it says it's recommended the city proceed with doing a comprehensive general plan update utilizing existing funds augmented by an allocation of ARPA monies. And then if the council directs this approach, a motion to proceed should include authorization to release an RFP for a general plan update. So I was a little bit confused because it sounds like you're saying now, I mean, you're asking us to proceed with doing a comprehensive general plan update using the existing funds by that allocation of ARPA,
Mhm.
at least to move forward with the RFP.
And maybe that's where I was not clear enough in terms of the RFP. That gives you, as I just said, it gives you what the dollar amount is going to be.
And we can decide at that
And you
point.
can,
Mhm.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that we can then decide for sure once we get that information back. But I think what the city manager is saying is that, you know, we need to also be thinking about how we're going to fund that so that we're not letting those numbers get stale because they're only going to be good for a certain amount of time. And we're not going to have, you know, another 6 to 12 months to decide because the cost is going to change and we have to go out again.
Joan, can you write the RFP so it says we may do some or all of these items and make sure they're all priced out individually?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we did that with the solar. Right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Other comments or Councilman Berland?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Unlike the solar, I would hope that when it comes back, though, we can take action, though, that actually allows us to make a decision, because that one did not. So I appreciate the example, but
Only in the sense of,
I know. I just want to be specific. No, I appreciate very much the explanations from both of you. Sorry for my commentary of my thoughts on the whole process, but I definitely agree and understand the risks. I'm really concerned, I'll just be honest with you, about our financial outlook in our city and in our state. And I really come back to hearkening Andy's comments about CalPERS and the fact that they're supposed to get a 7-point-something% return. They're at -6%. Yes, we have a designated unfunded liability fund, but I'll also remind us that we reduced that from 2 million down to 1 million. And not knowing over the next couple of years how much we'll need to dip into all of that while still having a prudent fiscal balance. I also noted really quick that I think that there's a couple new elements that were missing from your list, including environmental justice, and I even think air quality are now required elements. So we might just want to just double check on that. But I think this the path forward that was set out here of getting a request for a quote, a proposal, whatever that looks like, to give us some really hard numbers so we can make some decisions. I definitely appreciate the suggestion of reutilizing the broadband. Realizing prior to you being here, it seemed like it was very important that we do that. And so all of a sudden to just say, well, we're just gonna reprioritize it. I think we need a little bit more discussion on justifying that. Again, that doesn't prejudice my thoughts of reutilizing it, but I think we need to justify that to the community. So it's a pretty big pill to swallow.
It is.
Not by any means arguing the need for it, the overdueness. I definitely don't. We are in a different time period than our former councils had, and so if we have the dollars and that's what we prioritize, but I definitely think that we need to see it broken down. And I would assume that when you go out to proposal, mentioning the fact that we already have this work done by the form-based code,
Yes.
hopefully will help, bring down some of those costs based
That would
on
be
on
great.
involvement. So.
Well, that's the 750,000 is really, we talked about for the circulation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyways, thank you, Joan, for, I really do mean it. It was a good, understanding of what we need to do, what the importance is. But I also really appreciate, Jonathan, once again, your enthusiasm. Thank you.
And I think, again, we have to remember, LAFCO saying to us, we're not going to approve annexation without updates. And, everyone's talking about annexation and they're telling us no.
I would be curious if they specifically said that, because when we brought LAFCO in to the annexation committee, they didn't say that. And now time has passed. So and there's a new leader at LAFCO. So there's a few things that, I'm not arguing whether they said it, but I just want to make sure that we're based on a foundation of fact,
Yeah.
not a potential.
I think it's for I'm talking about we've had annexation with the development, Collins development, but that was really a single.
Yeah, well, I mean, when the annexation committee laid out their plan, they brought in LAFCO and we heard from them.
When was
And
that? Was before 2020?
yeah, so 5 years ago. And again, there's a new executive director.
Sure.
So times have changed. Time has passed there. I just want to make sure, because an updated MSR was never part of the conversation. And so just want to make sure that they're
So-
telling us that that's a hard fact that we have to do.
State law probably.
I
Probably, I mean.
I have not heard that, and maybe Jonathan has more background on this. I have not heard that LAFCO has said we're not going to do annexations. What I have heard is without an MSR, it's very challenging to be able to process an annexation because we don't know the ability to provide the level of service that will be needed.
There's no data.
There's no
It's
data.
the abacus.
Well, the data is very old.
I don't know what it's all that stuff. It's rocks and dirt. sticks.
So if I could just also say that I appreciate very much all of the comments. I truly appreciate the comments about the budget and the concern.
Absolutely.
I can tell you I share that concern. But I think it's my obligation to give you what the big picture is on where you are at this point in time and what it's going to cost, and lay the groundwork to start planning for that, which we will be coming back with much more detail and recommendation in the budget process. But I can assure you again, I share that concern based upon what I've seen.
And I just have to say that, decades ago, perhaps those that sat on this dais before us many decades ago didn't have that overall vision and ability to make those long range plans. Because I think that if we had done that many decades ago, Auburn would have expanded out. There would be no North Auburn. It would have been Auburn. But, I'm talking again, decades and decades ago. Decisions were made by a city council that just didn't have that foresight. So, and the planning documents, who knows? Oh, I'm talking about, they're probably dead. I'm talking a long time ago, Daniel, many decades. We're talking the 50s, 60s. So anyway, any other comments? Yes, Councilwoman.
I just wanted to say thank you. I know I was the one who brought this up, so thank you to staff. I know this wasn't an easy task to get everything kind of together, but I think it's really important to kind of see it holistically and see it and understand what really the big task is. It's easy to kind of put things off onesie, twosie, but when you see kind of how far behind we've truly gotten all together, it really gets overwhelming. And unfortunately, if we were keeping up to date on it, it wouldn't be as big of a pill to swallow because it would be much easier to do the update and we would be able to update it in pieces versus having everything be all outdated at the same time. So I appreciate you guys bringing in the map and having the enthusiasm that you do. I know that the reason why you have the enthusiasm is because not having an updated plan makes your job a lot harder. And so I know you're jumping up and down because you really want to make new revenue sources for the city and want us to succeed and want us to be able to make it over this financial cliff. And so I appreciate that you're working so hard to do that. I know it costs a lot of money, but I really do think that you have to spend money to make money. And if we keep being financially concerned like we have been over the last 10, 15 years and not updating it, we're just going to end up getting in a worse spot, and it doesn't get any cheaper over time. So I'm sure it would have been a lot cheaper to do it 15 years ago than it is today. So I appreciate all the time. I look forward to further conversations and figuring out how we can get as much of this done as possible so we can help to move our city forward. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open this up for public comment because we haven't had public comment yet. Is there any public comment on this item? Madam Clerk, any online public comment? Is there anyone?
We have not received public
wait,
comment on this item.
on this discussion. I don't know. Okay, hearing that there's no public comment on this item, I'm going to bring it back to the council for direction. Do we have a motion? All right, well, I'll make a motion. We can give direction. We can direct staff to proceed with doing a comprehensive general plan update, utilizing existing funds augmented by allocation of ARPA funds or as staff feel fit. And then we have to make to make a motion to proceed to include authorization and all that other stuff. So perhaps, Mr. City Attorney, can you guide us? And I don't, what needs to be an emotion, what needs to just be direction?
Aren't you just asking to go out for RFP?
I don't want to just ask our attorney. I want to make sure that we say it.
Yeah, so excuse me, I think if there's consensus direction, that's sufficient. And if staff finds that sufficient, there doesn't need to be a motion. But if there's disagreement amongst the council and you want to formalize it, you can.
Okay, so without objection, then we will direct staff to move forward with, to proceed with doing a comprehensive general plan update and to proceed with the release a request for proposal for a general plan update. So to proceed, wait, golly jeepers, stop again. We're going to give direction to release a request for proposal for a comprehensive general plan update and to come back to the council with appropriate funding recommendations.
Good.
Is there any objection to that direction?
No, that's good.
Okay, I'm hoping someone wrote that down because I have to report it to Medlars. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Council, all right, there's no objection. That shall be, do you have an objection? No objection.
No objection, Madam
Okay.
Mayor. I just want to be certain, you said RFP. RFP is good, but an RFQ, I don't want
Yes.
to limit our opportunities because.
Okay, how about if we just say RFP/RFQ?
Right, there, thank you.
Yeah, I know, and because we did talk about RFQs earlier and I just was saying
Provide
RFP.
more opportunities in our situation,
Yes.
possibly.
We want lots of opportunities. So we'll say RFQs, request for qualifications. The bottom line is we want to know how much it's going to cost for each element. Madam City Manager?
Yes, may I clarify if the direction includes that we also incorporate into our process through the budget process, the other documents that are going to be needed so that they are in the queue for potential funding in the future?
You mean the storm drain
Correct.
plan and the other? Well,
The EIR, the
obviously.
EIR will be the next, and then
Yeah,
the
the
zoning,
EIR will
all,
have
all
to
the
be-
things that
We
were
can
outlined
incorporate
there.
that for future planning purposes. There's no reason why we can't have line items. If it's zero, it's zero, but we should incorporate those.
Okay.
Is there
Thank
any
you.
objection? All
Thank
right, we've dispensed with that item number 10. And we're done with item number 11. So I'd like to ask the city attorney if we could continue the presentation on the SB 1439. Do we need to have that?
You asked before I could offer. So yes, we can move it to next. meeting.
Okay, yeah, so we'll continue that. I know that we do want to hear from the police chief on. Is there a desire for majority of the council members to have our homeless update at our next meeting then?
Is there, I guess, is there a?
Is
sense
there
of-
anything
is there an
urgent that we need to know about right away?
Do you need us to make any comments for the RFP or anything like that?
Good evening, City Council, Madam Mayor, City Council members, Ryan Canan, your police chief. And I had to be as excited as Jonathan was for my topic. We're all in competition here. Just quick updates. So obviously, right after the shelter was opened at the middle of February, we saw an increase in about 19 individuals that we saw started coming in over that month. Since we started addressing it about last Thursday, or about last 2 weeks rather, we've seen a decrease in those numbers. We haven't recontacted those same folks. We've been in contact with probation. Probation is a great partner with us. Obviously, we have our pop sergeant in the back. Kathy Williamson has been on this. Well, we've done a couple CAT overtime operations that have been successful in getting people some of the resources. So we've seen people like typically at the Amtrak station coming in and then heading out and vice versa. So nothing major to report right now.
So just to clarify, then I know initially you said that once the shelter or the mobile shelter opened, that we identified an additional 19 individuals that were here. But you're saying that through the efforts with probation and other outreach, we've been able to, although they have moved on.
Through our CAT team efforts, our pop,
Yeah,
and then a
those
partnership
19
with
have moved
probation.
on, so we're back at our normal.
We're about our mid-20s. The point in time count was 26. And that was actually the first time since I've been here that the point in time count has been that close to what our numbers have reflected over that strategic plan.
Okay.
And so they're at about 44 people in the tents now, or 44 tents filled. 6 are available and then empty currently. And that's kind of where they stand right now.
Because the bottom line is that even though I know they always have one bed available, and so we can always tell folks they can't camp in Auburn. I mean, there's a bed available. All we have to do is in order to comply with that.
Martin versus Boise.
Yes, the Smart versus Boise decision is a bed just has to be available. So we can if there is camping happening, we can move them along because there is a bed available. They can choose to use it or not. So as long as that's available,
Correct.
at least we have
And
that
so
option.
probation keeps about 5 tents available for law enforcement purposes and to get someone, to be able to move someone in there. But Martin versus Boise only is specific to camping. It doesn't encompass all
No,
the
I
other
agree.
nuisance type laws that are out there.
Understood. Yeah, but I do know we have had some issues with camping. I've seen some stuff on. Okay,
Madam Mayor, would it be possible that we add this to a future agenda, whether it's in 2 weeks, just to give it more time? Because I know that there are members of the public based on
would be
earlier
interested, yeah.
conversations from even the Medlars presentation. But I don't want to, I would like to ask more, but I would like to be respectful of the time right now. But I also do appreciate the short summary. But if we could agendize it in the very near future, that would be great.
that's fine.
Thank you.
No problem. Next item on the agenda then is the identification of focus advocacy points for Cap to Cap Trip 2023. And Madam City Manager, if I might, I can just maybe give a really quick synopsis here. As you know, I'm participating in Cap to Cap as the mayor this year. I am sitting on the Public Safety Committee, and I'm very proud to report that the Sac Metro Chamber, as one of the 4 big items, has identified fire and resiliency as one of the top priorities. So that's something that I've been trying to get and to make happen for quite a while. And I'm really pleased to see that the Sac Metro Chamber is taking that so seriously. And so we've already got a series of meetings scheduled with Congressman Vera, Senator Feinstein, Congressman McClintock, and others. And so really my message back east, I know Councilman Holmes is going on his own dime, really is going to be focused on fire, forest resiliency, and really pushing that is really what my focus will be. And so I'm just, I'm not, there may be some transportation or something else that I can be supportive of as well as a PCTPA member. But really what I'm just asking is that both of our efforts really be focused on behalf of the city of Auburn on fire at this time.
Just a
Councilwoman
quick question.
Yeah.
So will you be getting, have an opportunity to get funding then? Is that the desire or help through
You know
the
what I'd really
feds?
like to have happen is I would love to see Congress augment U.S. Forest Service and BOR's budget.
Okay.
But, and Councilman Holmes and I will try to get meetings with the U.S. Forest Service and BOR. I'm not sure how successful we're going to be. There's so many meetings going on and we have these team meetings in addition. And so we're going to do our best. We're going to meet with Congressman Kiley as well to do a meet and greet and, make sure he understands the concerns that we have. But I mean, ultimately, what I'd like to do is I'd like to augment their budget, and that has to be through
Okay.
Congress, and
Good.
the president has to
One,
sign.
one other suggestion
Mhm.
is that we have a homeless situation down at the railroad, down, and it passes through Auburn all around. They have the Trails to Rails program that has a lot of money, federal money. So if you have an opportunity, that might be something you could explore.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll have an opportunity to talk just about that. I think there's a lot of validity to that, but I think really because of the amount of time that we really have, and if we get meetings with the congressman's office, it's going to be like a 10-minute meeting. And so I really want to focus on fire, and so that that's our message, because there's many
Maybe
things we
Holmes could do that then.
Well, and Congressman Holmes has some things he's going to do on his own. Congressman.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, look.
You've gone up a few levels.
Well, I'm going to be on the air quality team.
Yes, Councilman Holmes is on the air quality team, and so he'll be talking, that you're talking about fire too, but I'm
Yes.
just saying that from the city's perspective, any efforts that we have on lobbying are really going to be focused on fire. Councilman Holmes, on his own accord, because he's leaving early, is going to advocate for the preservation of a couple of historic, the tunnels and Deadwood Cemetery, but that's not on behalf of the city of Auburn. That's on Mr. Holmes' behalf.
Not on my behalf, it's on the county's behalf.
Okay, on the county's behalf.
Yeah,
It's just, my point is, it's not on the city. That you're not advocating on, this is not the position of the city of Auburn to advocate for that. The city of Auburn is advocating for fire. Yeah.
But if you go into some seminar.
If I hear something, well, okay, so is there, so with that, so that'll be the direction then to me that I'll, and to Councilman Holmes, that from the city's perspective, that will be our main issue. That will be our issue. That will be our message on point. But of course, my team deals with all public safety. So chief there'll be lots of stuff about police to be discussed too. So, okay. Anything else on that? No. Okay. Reports, I'm going to ask the city manager, do you have anything that we need to have right now?
Only one thing. I'll delay everything to the next meeting with the exception of, I wanted to let everybody know that the Community Development, Economic Development Office will be closed on Wednesday for training of the entire staff. We have posted it on the website. It's a press release has been issued and we will post it on the door that day. Just FYI.
Okay. And council members, without objection,
I
well,
have one quick thing.
yes.
For the next meeting, we were wondering if we were going to have enough for a quorum. Do we have a
Okay.
quorum?
So April 24th meeting, we will have a majority of council members present in this space. Councilman Holmes and I will be participating in the meeting remotely.
Okay. just wanted to make sure.
And it will have to be honest with you, I know that there was a room, but I think it's just going to be easier for us to do the just cause. We'll use our just cause. Each of us will use our just cause for noticing purposes. Yes, we'll vote. I'll run the meeting remotely. So we don't have to notice where we're doing it from, because I just didn't do it from my hotel room in my Zoom. Yes, but you don't know what room number I'm in. Maybe I'll do it in the lobby. I don't know. The point is we don't have to notice, but it'll be a just cause, but there will be a majority of council members yes. And tomorrow we will meet for a special session to conduct our final interviews. Okay, without objection, we're going to consider this adjourned. Thank you very much, council members.
Okay.